capability.
Here, the fleet can be remade, piece by piece. They even make their own parts.
There's not thousands of these ships, so we have to deal with obsolescence, and parts are not always available. So being able to manufacture them in-house and reinstall it is crucial for keeping the ships alive and operational.
5 ships are here. The facility is near capacity, and Captain Robert says he'd like to hire 200 more people.
It's not like we can flip a switch and conduct all sorts of acquisitions or procurements, right?
But the new money does loosen bottlenecks.
What it's done is that the plans that we had to improve our operations, to increase the input of apprentices, for example, or to acquire tooling or spares that were being throttled back because of the financial restraints that we had in the past, now we're able to proceed with those procurements.
He now has money to buy parts and pay overtime, and there already have been specific wins. We leave the shop floor and head up to his office. There's a great view. Above, a light dusting of snow on the mountain tops. Below, a black submarine surrounded by scaffolding in a dry dock.
Over there in the dry dock is HMCS Corner Brook.
When the Prime Minister said Canada had one seaworthy sub, this is it. But even it's been out of the water since last fall. One of the main jobs has been to change its batteries.
Each one of them would be about the size of a person. And weight, it is over 400 or 500 pounds. So quite an impressive evolution when they're replacing them. They barely fit in the hatch that they're being brought on board through. And that is done using a crane. So obviously there's some limitations with wind and to make sure we do it safely. And they're once on board, they're actually moved on teak boards using dish soap.
You heard it right. They squirt dish soap on teak boards to slide the batteries into place.
Is that work tied to the new 2% target?
The work itself would have existed regardless. So now we have more tools at our disposal, more specialized equipment that allow us to do it more effectively.
With the submarine, he's used new money to buy a battery charger and had it placed close to the dry dock. And he's been able to pay for extra shifts because he's under pressure to get the sub back in the water.
And if you look at a submarine, there's only 2 access points. It's fairly limited in space. It's not easy to send many folks on board at the same time. So the only way we can really increase the number of hours of work that we're conducting on board is to work around the clock.
Are you going to hit the deadline?
We have to hit the deadline because we're limited by the tides of when a submarine can come in and out of dry dock.
Right. So the wind, the tides, there's a lot that you don't control.
Absolutely.
For Captain Roberts, Canada's spending race runs into physics, the size of a submarine hatch, the pull of the tide. For Rear Admiral Patchell, it's not physics, but math.
The biggest challenge for me is actually not having enough ships. I need more ships to send more sailors to sea. Sailors want to go to sea. We hire them to go to sea. I need to get them to sea. So the biggest bottleneck in terms of that, train, recruit, retain, inspire, is actually bunks for sailors to go to sea.
What is a metric the public should use to see how effective this new wave of spending really is?
It's an age-old question. How do you measure readiness? How much military capability is required to defend a massive G7 country, right? With the longest coastline in the world, 250,000 kilometers, enough to stretch around the equator 6 times. Like, it's massive, right? So if you ask me how many ships do we need, it's a big number. I think Canadians will know it'll take some time, but I'm expecting 10 years from now to see our Navy in all 3 of our oceans all the time. And that is a goal. I'm expecting to see this harbor full of HMC ships and ships that are ready to go to sea and ready to defend Canada and support our allies abroad.
Canada has promised to boost military spending well into the next decade, but it all gets reviewed in 2029, the year President Trump leaves office. So here's the real question. Is all this a spending sprint or the start of a marathon? The answer will be measured in Canada's capabilities. Thanks for listening to Assignment. I'm Neil Rizal. The editor is Penny Murphy.
That was Assignment from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho, and this is CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live downtown at our CBC studios, and thanks so much for joining us on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. Show's on air till 8:37 AM. Corey Funk's the show director. Morning, Corey. Corey also will cover your commute on the air. Good morning, Mr. Abby Adiyemi behind the controls. Abby covers the weather on the show, so we'll talk to him in a bit here behind the mic. And there's Mr. Darren Mirage, who is your producer of your YouTube stream. Please say hello if you're watching the show there. All right, let's get into this weather. After that snow across Manitoba, we did get some serious melting yesterday, more than even I anticipated in Winnipeg for sure. Pretty wet out there this morning. Once again, we're going to be above zero. A high of 4 this afternoon, mix of sun and cloud, and really windy. Winds south 30 to 50. In Brandon today, clearing. A high of 7 degrees in Brandon today, so speaking of melting. And in Thompson, a 60% chance you'll see some light snow. And in Thompson today, a high of -4. Let's check with Heather Wells, as always, to get this Thursday morning rolling with our headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, the family of a Manitoba woman who died while waiting for heart surgery has learned their mother's case was accidentally put in the wrong pile. In 2024, Debbie Fuster was told she needed heart surgery. Within 3 weeks, she died on the waiting list. After her death, Fuster's children proposed Debbie's Law. We're going to hear about it coming up. As well, enrollment in girls minor hockey in this province is seeing double-digit growth. Hockey Manitoba says it has registered more than 600 new players in the past 2 years, a nearly 13% increase. We're going to hear from the CEO coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, that sounds fantastic for a whole new generation of women hockey players. We're going to hear from some of the girls who are enrolling as well to pair with Heather's news stories. So stay tuned. We're going to have that for you. Brittany Greenslade was talking to some of the young players. In addition, in the first hour of the show, we've got some fun. There's a big event on in Assiniboia Downs, and if you love cats, you want to be there. We're going to hear all about what's coming up. They talk about making your cat the most cat-proof, cat-friendly. There's also some fun stuff like a fashion show. Also, we're going to hear more about Cirque du Soleil behind the scenes. There's a special new CBC documentary that's coming up. Stay with us.
On cue. When Paul McCartney announced the end of the Beatles, someone asked him what he planned to do next. His answer on a piece of paper was, "My plan, my only plan, is to grow up." Oscar-winning filmmaker Morgan Neville will tell you what that growing up looked like for Sir Paul.
Q with Tom Power this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Energy markets are reacting this morning to a major escalation in the Middle East as Iran ramps up strikes against its neighbors. Brent crude has spiked to $114 a barrel following drone and missile attacks on key refineries and ports in Kuwait and Qatar. Tehran says it is retaliating for an Israeli bombing of a shared gas field, but the fallout is spreading. Crystal Gamansing reports.
The kingdom is not going to succumb to pressure.
Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud's condemnation of strikes on Persian Gulf nations didn't stop there. The foreign minister reserved the right for Saudi Arabia to take military action. Iran is intensifying attacks on neighboring countries after Israel struck the South Pars gas field, a site it shares with Qatar. On his Truth Social site, U.S. President Donald Trump wrote that neither he nor Qatar knew about the bombing ahead of time. He said Israel would not strike there again and told Iran to stand down. It has not. Kuwait Petroleum Corporation's oil port and refinery complex south of the capital was hit by a drone. The fire contained, according to local media. Qatar Energy says the Ras Laffan site has now suffered extensive damage after back-to-back waves of hits by Iran. Arab and Muslim leaders are calling for the hostilities to end, saying they are not participants in the war. As they gathered for urgent talks in Riyadh Wednesday, strikes were launched. The Saudi foreign minister.
If Iran doesn't stop, that is the mood also I heard in this room earlier. I think there will be almost nothing that can reestablish that trust.
Fragments of an Iranian missile also killed 3 Palestinian women in the occupied West Bank overnight in a town near Hebron. Most in the occupied territories don't have shelters. and rely on sirens from nearby Israeli communities. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, Jerusalem.
The U.S. intelligence leadership is back in the hot seat today as lawmakers demand more evidence to justify the ongoing war with Iran. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard is heading to the House after a combative day in the Senate. Joining us now from Washington is Willie Lowry. Willie, what's the focus of the House committee today?
Much like yesterday's Senate intelligence hearing, today's House hearing will likely focus on the U.S. war with Iran. Yesterday, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard sidestepped questions around whether or not Iran posed an imminent threat, something the administration has alleged in recent weeks. She says that's ultimately up to the president to decide. While the hearing is a yearly event, representatives will try to figure out why exactly the U.S. went to war with Iran and what evidence the intelligence community had suggesting that Iran was either about to attack U.S. troops or trying to actively rebuild their nuclear capabilities.
Willie, we seem to be seeing a growing divide amongst Trump Republicans over support for the war.
That's right. Perhaps the most obvious example of the tension that is building among Republicans is the recent resignation of Joe Kent as director of the National Counterterrorism Center and a former Republican congressional candidate in the state of Washington. Kent publicly resigned over the war and spoke with Tucker Carlson last night.
Was Iran on the verge of getting a nuclear weapon?
No, they weren't, 3 weeks ago when this started. And they weren't in June either.
It's important to note, though, that recent surveys still suggest a vast majority of Republicans still support the war.
Willie Lowry in our Washington bureau. Thanks, Willie.
My pleasure.
A new letter from Doug Ford reveals a sharp divide in how provinces view the future of the auto industry. The Ontario Premier is calling on BC and Quebec to drop their electric vehicle sales targets, arguing the mandates put Canadian jobs at risk. But as Colin Butler reports, while Ontario is focused on manufacturing, leaders in the West say the move to electric is a necessary response to the rising cost of fuel.
We need to stick together as a country, and we're, united we stand, divided we fall.
A call for unity from Ontario Premier Doug Ford. He says he's asked Quebec and BC to ease their EV targets. He argues they could put Canada's auto sector at a disadvantage, since most vehicles are exported to the U.S., a market that might be loosening emissions rules.
It's like me telling Premier Eby, by the way, we aren't buying your beautiful lumber anymore. No, you just keep it over there. So it should be Team Canada, not Team XYZ province.
British Columbia Premier David Eby says they are on the same team, even if they're facing different pressures.
It's crucial for all premiers to work together to support each other on these challenges we share.
He says BC is adjusting its mandate to help, but EVs are still key to protect consumers from skyrocketing gas prices thanks to the war in Iran. All the while, he says, BC has had its trade pressures too on softwood lumber, steel, and seafood to China. He also suggested not all provinces are carrying the burden equally.
We faced a disproportionate impact of the trade war compared with other provinces. And we don't receive equalization like Ontario does.
A call for unity from two different provinces, even as they pull in different directions. Colin Butler, CBC News, Toronto.
Alberta is preparing to pull back on who can access medically assisted dying. New provincial legislation would set a 1-year life expectancy limit, effectively barring those with chronic, non-terminal conditions or mental health struggles from the program. While the Premier argues the move protects the vulnerable, families who've used the service say it removes a fundamental choice. Erin Collins has more.
We believe MAID must be a compassionate option reserved only for those who will not recover from terminal illness.
Alberta's Premier laying out the reasoning behind Bill 18. Danielle Smith says the new law will limit access to medically assisted dying, restricting MAID to people with less than a year to live, eliminating advance requests from people suffering from diseases like Alzheimer's.
In other words, for individuals whose death is not reasonably foreseeable, there are often other care and treatment options available.
Smith says the new law would also prevent people suffering solely from mental health conditions from accessing MAID, something a special joint committee of Parliament is currently looking into. But the proposed law doesn't sit well with some Albertans.
For 12 years, he lived with really chronic, debilitating pain.
Tanya Stilson's father, John, chose a medically assisted death in 2023 at 83, a choice he wouldn't be able to make under Alberta's new law.
I'm devastated for people who are considering MAID and now have to make a decision based on what illness or disease that they have. Their choice is restricted.
In a statement, the federal government wrote that provinces have the right to develop their own frameworks around MAID. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Calgary.
A Fredericton teenager says she's being effectively let go by the mental health system just because she's doing well. She says the Regional Health Authority closed her file because she hasn't needed an appointment in months. As Alison McCormick reports, the move comes as New Brunswick struggles with a massive shortage of psychiatrists.
With disorders like mine, my mental health may be fine one day and fluctuate greatly the next.
Avery Jardine lives with borderline personality disorder, a condition she's been managing for years. At times, she relies heavily on her psychiatrist through Horizon Health. But after not needing an appointment for months, she says she was told her file would be closed.
They told us there's too many people who need help, and they can't keep holding on to people who might need help.
The Horizon Health Network declined an interview, but it says access to psychiatry in Fredericton has actually improved this year with the addition of 5 new psychiatrists. Still, there are more than 33 vacancies for provincial psychiatrists in New Brunswick. According to the Canadian Mental Health Association, the province has half the number of psychiatrists per 100,000 people compared to the Canadian average.
It was disheartening to see that she was let go.
Deidre Jardine is Avery's mother. She says she fought hard to get her daughter access to that support and worries what they'll do the next time she needs help.
The hopelessness of feeling that if she does need the help, what do we have to go through to get the help again?
Jardine says she has insurance that covers private psychiatric care, but with a cap of $500, that would be gone in just 3 appointments. Alison McCormick, CBC News, Fredericton.
And finally, Canada drops to 25th place in the latest World Happiness Report, marking its lowest ranking ever. The 2026 report warns of a dramatic decline in well-being among young Canadians, particularly teenage girls. Researchers point to heavy social media use and algorithmic feeds as a key factor in the slide. Finland remains the world's happiest country for the 9th year in a row. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. The melt will continue, Manitoba. It's going to be wet across the province today. Still cold, still really windy in Winnipeg, but our high is going to be above 0. So, Abby, with our full forecast in just a couple of minutes from now. Well, this hour on the program, Cirque du Soleil. Have you ever been to a show or maybe watched some of the behind the scenes? It's amazing what those athletes do. There is now a brand new Cirque du Soleil documentary that's about to come out on CBC. We're going to hear more about it this hour on the show. In addition, what is going on with the latest in the war in Ukraine? The Iran war has shifted public attention. We're going to catch up on the conflict, which is now in its 5th year. But we begin with something fun and something great for cat lovers especially. There's an expo in town you might want to get your paws on. It's at Assiniboia Downs, and we're going to hear all about it. And if you do love cats, you want to watch the show right now on YouTube because we're about to stream some cutie patootie little pictures. Right now it's 6:11. Let's turn our attention to a little more serious matters. Heather Wells joins us live from our news center with updates on the stories in Manitoba. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning. Well, people in the small western Manitoba town of Rivers are still coming to grips with news of a plot to attack their local high school. A 14-year-old boy is in custody facing a charge of uttering threats. The suspect was arrested on the school bus Monday morning. We're going to hear from a parent coming up who says it was especially shocking since her child also takes a school bus. A Winnipeg nurse says Canada's immigration system is undercutting efforts to hire more healthcare workers. Matt Ushakov says his permanent residency application was rejected because it didn't describe what he does. That's even though his employer said he is a registered nurse. He says he wasn't given a chance to add more documents and now worries he may be forced to go back to his native Russia. That story coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
Well, Heather and Abby, I found yesterday quite relieving because I thought to myself, okay, it's that reminder of how quickly, things do melt at this time of year, at least, Heather, after that snow on Monday.
Yeah, it was really sloppy, wasn't it? Didn't you want rubber boots?
Yeah, totally. Total mess. I have really beautiful mucklucks, and I was going to wear them this morning, and I thought better. Right at the door, I switched my footwear because it is going to be messy today, Abby.
Yes, Marcy, it's going to be messy. We're expecting a mix of sunny conditions and some clouds to go with that as the mild air warms the southern part of the province. Though, if you look at up north, we're still seeing those really dangerous wind chills still biting Churchill this morning. We're looking at wind chills in the valleys of -35s, close to -40 up north. But for Winnipeg and the Red River Valley at this time, today's forecast for the city and nearby areas in the region features a mix of sun and cloudy conditions, which will be clearing by the afternoon period. We should see temperatures just stay around -5 and -7 all morning, and temperatures going to be bringing some breezy south winds. High would be +4. Mercy, yesterday I said +1. Now I can say +4.
It's getting better.
It's been a while I said the pluses, so it feels good. Across the southern regions, we're going to see temperatures hover between 1 and -10. And of course, we will definitely be seeing highs climbing towards +8 in the southern region. But up north, we're still seeing temperatures hold things down between -6 and -25, -26 as you travel towards Churchill. Winnipeg right now, we're hovering around -7.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
You're welcome.
Let's get into what's going on in the morning commute. We already talked about how slushy it is out there. Did you run in, Corey?
I did run in, yeah. And actually yesterday I put rain boots on my little lady. She's a year and a half now for the first time. And I guess really because last time there was slush, she couldn't walk. So I put her down yesterday. It was like her mind was blown. That she could like splash around in the...
I was going to say, did she do the double foot jump or was she kind of pushing through
it was the stomp. It was the elephant stomp more so kind of thing. And then she'd fall over inevitably, and it was really cute.
How come you're not wet this morning from running in?
Actually, the sidewalks are actually fairly packed. It wasn't actually too slushy there. It was actually when I took her on the little trails along the rivers when it got real kind of slushy in there. So, so sidewalks are actually okay. Haven't heard of any issues on the highways or here in the city. But as I declared officially yesterday, it is the beginning of pothole season. So let me know if you do see anything going on. You can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, we couldn't resist, right? How do you not play that tune when you're talking about cats walking the catwalk? Some of Winnipeg's finest felines will step up to walk the catwalk and strut their fluff on stage. It's all part of Meow Mania's Best Dressed event. It's just one of the things that's happening this Sunday at Assiniboia Downs. This expo also offers a market. They have an adoption fair that helps felines who are needing a forever home. This morning, Sabrina Nyan is with us this morning, up early with her cat ears literally on her head. She's the event organizer. Good morning.
Good morning.
So these cute little headband of cat ears, is that one of the vendors makes those?
Yeah, one of our vendors makes them. I thought they were perfect for me. My favorite color is purple, so she customized them. But yeah, no, she has quite a few.
Love it. This event, before we get to the fun stuff with the catwalk and stuff, there's a whole bunch of things going on. One of the things that I sort of zeroed in on right away was there's like talks about how to make your home feline friendly.
Yeah, so one of our most popular talks last year was the feline behavior expert. So Dr. Carly Prejet, she's a veterinarian. She's going to be joining us on the stage this year for 2 talks because it was just so popular last time. And she's going to be talking about the 5 pillars of a healthy feline environment.
Well, what do you think made it so popular? Like, do you recall any of what she was sharing that people were like, oh, that's so interesting, or I never knew that?
Yeah, and you know what? I didn't have an opportunity to listen myself
Intently,
last time just because I was
running around.
Yeah. But, I think people just want to understand cats a little bit better, make their lives a little bit happier at home and just care for them.
Do you have cats at home? How'd you get into this?
Yes. No, I've been a certified cat lady my whole life. I have 2, limited to 2 because I live in an apartment. If I could have more, I definitely would. But I noticed a couple years ago, all of the events for the dogs started popping up in the springtime. And I kind of just took to my social media. I was like, where are the cat events? Why is nothing happening for cats?
Yep.
And I just had a lot of encouragement. They're like, you need to do something about this. So it's like, okay.
How many people did you have? When was your first event?
It was the fall of 2024.
Yep.
Very small, Deer Lodge Community Center. I didn't think it was going to be that crazy, but we were blown away by the enthusiasm of the cat community in Winnipeg. We had just over 1,000 people come out. We felt like sardines in a can in the little community center there. But yeah, it was very well received. Everyone was very excited. So I was like, you know what? This needs to happen twice a year. I'm going to do it again.
Assiniboia Downs this year.
Yes, yeah. So we went to St. Norbert Arena in the spring for our second show. And I was like, we need some more space still. So we're at the Downs.
That's so amazing. How many people are you expecting? Do you have a sense of it?
You know what? We've sold about 1,000 tickets so far for the event this Sunday. We usually have about 1,500 people come out to our last 2 events, so we're expecting the same number, possibly more. Maybe we need a bigger venue next year.
Tell me about some of the other things that are happening. I mentioned adoption's a big part of this too.
Yeah, so we have our 9 rescues coming out. We have our feline-centric market, so all of our vendors there, local, they'll either have something cat-themed or something for your cats. We have our Meownificent icons, I like to call them, so our local feline celebrities with social media accounts will be coming up for meet and greet. And our adoption fair, the speaker stage.
We're going to show.
Dressed.
Let's show some pictures now because you mentioned best dressed. So we have some posters of the event that'll come up as well. But these are some pictures. Yeah. So what are we looking at here? These are some of the cats that are well known, or are these the ones that are in the fashion show?
So these ones we actually did. We wanted to include our shy kitties that won't be coming to the event. So we did an online best dressed for them. And these are some of the entries and the contestants.
They're so cute.
But we had a lot of cats physically come out to the event last year, which was very exciting and awesome. So we decided that we were going to do a best dressed contest this time around.
So how's it going to work? Are they because cats can be cats have a mind of their own.
Yes.
You tell a dog to walk a catwalk and it probably will do it and obey. A cat might be like, yeah, whatever, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
So how do you get them to do it?
I think a lot of the people that are bringing their cats, they're very well socialized, good in public, good with crowds. I don't expect them to have a catwalk, but they will be on the stage.
Yeah, got it. So I should describe some of the pictures. Let's just roll them once again here because I got busy talking and I didn't describe them for the radio listeners. So Darren's going to roll them now. I mean, we've got cats in little top hats and little 60s shades.
Yeah, this little beret.
Oh, is that a beret? Like a blue beret? This is matcha.
Yeah.
Pumpkin's wearing this little heart glasses and a pink sweater. And this little guy's name is Prince Panini T. I love the names of the cats too. Love it. Can people bring their cats if they're going to the event?
Yes, yeah. So we do welcome well-socialized cats. Obviously, we want them to be comfortable as long as they're healthy, up to date on their vaccines. Just because we do have a lot of cats in the venue for the rescues and and then the carriers.
I know you also have, there's grooming. You talk about cat health, all kinds of different things going on. Can people walk up? You mentioned you sold 1,000 tickets already. Can people still
We'll have
attend?
tickets at the door for sure. We are prepared this year. We have lots of volunteers at the front ready to scan tickets and take money.
Okay.
Because people line up an hour early
Wow.
in the past. So we're hoping to get everybody in the venue as fast as possible.
Good luck with this year's event. Obviously, you've got the interest there, and it sounds like it's going to be loads of fun.
Yes.
Thanks for coming in early and telling us about it. Is there a website or a Facebook page in case people want more information?
Yeah, so our website, meowmaniaexpo.com, our Instagram, Meowmania Winnipeg, WPG, and same with Facebook. So you can find us online.
Check out Meowmania online. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
That's Sabrina Anayan, who's with Meowmania. The event is happening Sunday at Assiniboia Downs. So this Sunday, Assiniboia Downs, it runs from 11 to 5.
A window cleaner that cleans well beyond windows. Bubble wrap as wallpaper. And what's with the lizard and the weight loss drug? It's a floor wax and dessert topping, unintended product uses on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly, Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland, and on demand on CBC Listen.
Well, CBC is going, as I mentioned, behind the curtain under the big top. For months, CBC cameras were given unprecedented behind-the-scenes access to one of the most celebrated shows in Canada, Cirque du Soleil's Lucia. The result is a new documentary called Cirque Life. It is helping to answer this question: what's it like to be part of Cirque?
Being on stage is my passion.
I love adrenaline and love pushing myself and pushing my limits.
I make people believe that impossible things are possible.
We cannot fail in our own market.
Tanya Blake is the executive producer of this new series that premieres on CBC Gem on Thursday, and she's up early joining us to tell us about it a bit today. Hi there.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So tell me a little bit more about where the documentary takes us.
Cirque Life, it's a docuseries from the artist POV. So we drop in at a moment in time when Lucia is returning to Montreal after having premiered there 9 years ago. And in Montreal, because it's the birthplace of Cirque du Soleil, the stakes are higher. The big bosses descend, they want to give notes, they want to ensure the show is still at its peak and getting better and better with every performance. And so we see the artists both train as artists and work through their craft in these notes, but we also see them as humans, as individuals. There's love, there's friendships, there's ego, therefore some friendly competition, there's pressure. It's all-encompassing in that way.
Why, in your view, is this an interesting watch right now?
I think Cirque in and of itself is quite magical. And if you've been to a show, you know that wonder really starts from the moment you enter the big top. And these are incredible artists at the top of their craft. And it's real. It's not AI. And so I think there's this return to live entertainment because of that. And with that comes also this insatiable appetite for us viewers wanting to know all the ins and outs of major organizations and brands like Cirque.
What drew you personally to doing this one?
I've always loved Cirque du Soleil personally. I grew up in Ottawa, and so we would always get the shows after they premiered in Montreal. And I remember seeing Saltimbanco in the 90s and thinking to myself, oh, I could do this. This is, I could run away with the circus. If only I was as talented and could be on stage. And so having the opportunity to work with our crew this summer in Montreal to really put this series together just felt very kismet and able to finally scratch that itch.
When you look at what kind of sacrifices these performers, make to go on tour with a show that can be like 9 years, what is staying with you about those that you talk with?
I think that they do end up missing out on their friends and family's milestones, and that's not easy. They do live a life on the road to reach their dream and to, it is their passion. And though Cirque is very encouraging of them bringing their person or families so that they can feel rooted, it's still, rather impossible to set roots anywhere when you're living out of a suitcase or in a different city every 2 months. And so there is sacrifice. There's a lot of movement there for them.
Speaking of the performers, we actually have a clip of one. You focus on some big personalities, including this person.
I'm Eric Collarhead. I am a clown main character in Cirque du Soleil's Lucia. Of course, I have a big ego. I don't know a clown who doesn't have a big ego.
Clowning is very, very tough at Cirque du Soleil. So having the same clown at Lucia since the beginning is amazing. This guy is the link between all the acts, and he's playing a key role.
You mentioned ego, at the beginning, saying, there's ego, there's drama, these are human beings, so obviously there's competition. What kind of personality do you think it takes to be in Cirque?
I think it takes someone who's ambitious, whose passion is naturally being an artist and being a performer that way. But it takes a lot of self-discipline and stamina and grit. And yeah, it does take ego. I call Eric the goat of clowns. He is this incredible clown. I've never seen anyone like him. And he's been with Lucia since creation. So this is very much his clown. And in the first episode, we learned that he can't be at the premiere. So no spoilers, but it means that his understudy has to take his place. And I don't think that that's easy for Eric or the understudy and one's ego.
Tanya, good luck with this series. Thank you very much for your time on CBC Manitoba today.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's Tanya Blake, executive producer of CBC's Cirque Life. It premieres March 19th, which is today, on CBC Gem. You can check it out. 6:27 a.m. the time right now on 89.3 FM, 990 a.m. on the app and on YouTube. Next local news coming up at 6:30. It's partly cloudy, -7. In Winnipeg, we'll head to a high of 4 degrees today. Brandon's looking at 7 degrees for a daytime high. Well, we've got a new track to slide in here ahead of the news. This is from Canadian singer-songwriter Donovan Woods and his latest album. It's called Who Could Love You?
I had a cough and a cup of coffee. You had the avocado toast to go. You put your coat on and said you'd call me, 'cause you had to go and watch the Golden Globes. I say your full name down in the basement. You say I shouldn't wear black with blue. Who could love you? Who could love you? Who could love you like I do? All of your friends know my medical history. You drag them all to open houses with you. Had an epiphany, you like Milwaukee. Yeah, sweetheart, I do too. I say your full name standing in the kitchen. You say annoying shit like you do you. Who could love you? Who could love you? Who could love you like I do? I bet we could be happy if we really want me. If we really want me. And I bet we could be happy. I could just be nice to you. You could just be nice to me. I say your full name waiting in the driveway. I hold your hand 'cause you want me to. Who could love you? Who could love you? Who could love you like I do?
Donovan Woods. His latest album, new album, is called Squander Your Gifts. And we're listening to Who Could Love You? Nice little ditty. We're coming up to news time here. If you want to reach us on the morning commute with any details, so far it should be wet, maybe a little bit slippery, but Corey said sidewalks were pretty good, actually. He made his run in Winnipeg today. Let us know if you're having any problems on the highways or wherever you are. 788-3093. Business news coming up. Canadian Airlines canceling more flights to Cuba. We'll hear about that after the news.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is -7 in downtown Winnipeg. It is the last official full day of winter, and we are going to be above normal. More melting with a high of 4, a little bit of a southerly breeze as well today. People in Rivers are shocked to learn of a plot to attack the local high school. A 14-year-old boy from the Western Manitoba community is in custody, facing a charge of uttering threats. The suspect was arrested on the school bus Monday morning. Renee Favron moved to Rivers with her family last year. She has a son in elementary school. Favron is grateful the plan was uncovered by police.
I feel like a lot of us are still kind of processing it. This is, kind of a big deal. So it's, that slow process of when you get those little bits of information that kind of drags it out a little bit.
A 15-year-old girl in Nova Scotia was also arrested. Police say the two teens were planning a coordinated attack at schools in River and Bridgewater, Nova Scotia. A Winnipeg nurse says Canada's immigration system is undercutting efforts to hire more healthcare workers. Matt Ushakov says his permanent residency application was rejected because it didn't describe what he does. That's even though his employer said he is a registered nurse. Ushakov says he wasn't given a chance to add more documents.
Every government, every city, every province, and the federal government as well is telling people that we're very short of nurses. We need every nurse we can get. And it's very frustrating to see that when it comes to it, it's not as easy as it appears to be.
Ushakov fears he may be forced to go back to his native Russia, where he could be conscripted. The Manitoba Nurses Union says the situation is very concerning. The family of a Manitoba woman who died while waiting for heart surgery has learned their mother's case was accidentally put in the wrong pile. In 2024, Debbie Fuster was told she needed heart surgery within 3 weeks. She died while on the waiting list. After her death, Fuster's children proposed Debbie's Law. Fuster's daughter, Colleen Dick, says it would let patients know how long they'd have to wait for surgery and discuss options with them for care outside the province.
When we started with the push for Debbie's Law, it was under the impression that she was on a waiting list and they never got to her. We got called in for a meeting at St. Boniface, and it was rather heartbreaking because it was even worse. A booking form had not been filled out properly by the doctor.
Dick says this type of human error highlights the need for the province to be more transparent with patients and revamp how the healthcare system communicates. The sentencing of a Winnipeg man who admitted to beating an elderly woman now rests with a judge. The 28-year-old man pleaded guilty to aggravated assault in January. CBC's Osten Shabakega has details from court.
Victoria Como was beaten so badly that she can't walk on her own anymore. The senior is also terrified to go outside by herself, ever since she was randomly attacked while walking to buy milk in February 2025. Justin Getty admitted to the beating in court last January. Court heard the 28-year-old has long-standing histories of both addictions and mental health issues. A pre-sentence report said Getty is at a high risk to reoffend because of his drug use, pro-criminal attitude, and antisocial behavior. Prosecutors said he should be given a 5-year sentence, but the defense called that crushing and asked for 2 years instead, on top of time served. At the end of the hearing, Getty said he was very, very, very sorry for the attack. The judge reserved their decision until a later date. Osten Shebekiget, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Energy markets are reacting to a major escalation in the Middle East as Iran ramps up strikes against its neighbors. Brent crude has spiked to $114 US a barrel following drone and assault attacks on key refineries and ports in Kuwait and Qatar. You can hear the latest on what's happening with the war in Iran, as well as other national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. Enrollment in girls' minor hockey in this province is seeing double-digit growth. Hockey Manitoba says it has registered more than 600 new players in the past 2 years, a nearly 13% increase. CEO Trevor Bunai says the largest uptake has been in the youngest level of players, and that, he says, is critical for laying a foundation both on and off the ice.
To develop skills for life, discipline, regular practice, working with teammates, learn great skills for their personal and professional lives as they grow into them.
Bunai says the Professional Women's Hockey League has also helped increase visibility for the sport among young women. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
You know what's awesome about that? When you think about growing up in this city, and honestly, like a lot of girls, all the girls that I knew played ringette.
Ringette, yes.
Yeah, and they played ringette, and because it's a separate sport, it might be fabulous, and maybe they chose to play ringette, but the point is they didn't have a choice. Yes. They played ringette because they had nowhere to play hockey.
Yeah.
So I just think it's awesome that we now are going to have generations of girls that go, what? Girls can play hockey? So, yeah.
And such an exciting sport. And it does teach all those skills. It's really wonderful.
Yeah, it's so good. What a great story. All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Abby, let's get into our regional forecast now and look all around Manitoba this Thursday.
Yeah, the province is going to be seeing a mix of sunny conditions and some clouds in the mix as we see some warm air really come through the southern regions. Though up north, we're still seeing wind chills impacting regions around Churchill. For down south here, we're looking at temperatures around minus 1 to minus 10 across most of the regions under some clearing as we get into the morning. For Winnipeg right now, we are seeing temperatures around minus 8, partly cloudy skies with morning temperatures hovering around minus 7 on this breezy south winds, and we should expect a mild high of +4 today. In the Pembina Valley region, from Northern Winkler turning all the way down to Morris and tracking it towards Port La Prairie, we're seeing -4 there also, partly cloudy. It warms up to +8 in that part of the province. For the Westman region, Brandon towards Nipawin and nearby regions, we're seeing temperatures around -3. Some misty conditions spotted there, though mild winds being felt in the air. You'll see your highs around 7 degrees today. In the Parkland and Interlake region for Dauphin and Gimli areas, temperatures hovering around -9, -10 at this time. There's a slim chance of flurries in the forecast. Some freezing drizzle might come here or there, and you see your highs near 5 degrees today. Now we go up north where we're seeing temperatures hover between -6 around the Par all the way to -25 as you travel towards Churchill. The Par, we're tracking -6 there. Periods of snow expected this morning. You warm up to -2. Thompson, Lynn Lake, Tudula Lake, we're seeing temperatures around -12 and -15s. We should see clear conditions. There's a good chance of light snow in the mix. Your highs will be between -4 and -10. Gillam is at -22 and clear, reaching a high of -5. To the wind chill this morning feels like -31. And for the Churchill and York region, frigid -25, partly cloudy skies. You only get to -14 today, though that wind chill of -35 is still really posing a risk of frostbite for folks up there, so take it easy. Generally, we're going to be seeing cloudy that's going to clear. Mild temperatures in the south, some clouds in the north. The Winnipeg is a mix of sun and clouds, and we warm up to +4.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey, the commute.
Yeah, the biggest issue right now is actually on Johnson between Brazier and Henderson. There's been a fire there, and they actually have it blocked off both ways this morning. And the city says crews are expected to be on scene essentially throughout the morning rush hour into the afternoon. So you may want to avoid that area altogether. Megan Ketchison called and actually said it's causing some traffic mayhem around on Johnson, as you can imagine, this morning as people got caught off guard by that. That's Johnson between Brazier and Henderson closed both ways. Other than that, though, if you do see anything else going on, if you're walking your bike and you're driving, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. Let me know what the updates are at Johnson there. I would love to hear from you as well. That number 204-788-3093.
We just did that interview about the new CBC series on Cirque du Soleil.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen a Cirque show before?
No, never actually.
Okay.
I know people who have, but never me.
Yeah. So when you go, the thing that you immediately notice is how people's how do they contort their bodies in these ways. Like, it's absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
right?
I can't even touch my toes, so it's extra incredible.
So when we were in Vegas one year, we went for massages. This is going somewhere that's related to Cirque, I promise. And Jean-Paul, who's like you, like marathon ran back in the day and, would push his body to the limit. We go in and he asks, he says he wants a really good sport massage, like get into the muscles, like, really help out. And I'm the opposite. So we both come out of our rooms at the end and look at each other and I'm like, and he's like, the person who massaged him was a Cirque performer and their spouse was a Cirque performer. And the person they actually ended up being a massage therapist for the Cirque crew. And Jean-Paul was just like completely, because he said, go for it. So he came out like, wow, he loved it. But and I had the opposite. I was like in the next door room with like, ting, they were like doing ethereal things and very gentle. And I'm not into any pressure.
My forehead.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. Meantime, I'm like, this is your heart chakra. Like completely different space. But I always thought it was funny, but their bodies are incredible. So I think that series actually could be really interesting to get behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we'll see the therapist in one of the shots.
Maybe.
Never know. All right. 6:41 a.m. is the time right now. Let's get back on track here and talk business news with Christy Ramlakan. Hello to you.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So some Canadian airlines canceling more flights to Cuba. What are the details?
Yes, so WestJet and Air Transat are extending their suspension of flights to the island, which has been struggling with a blackout this week amid an energy crisis. So WestJet says most Cuba trips are canceled through October, though 2 of its tour package divisions aim to start up again in June. And Air Transat says it plans to resume flights on June 20th. And both carriers say refunds will be available for affected passengers. So citing an ongoing fuel shortage, the airlines had announced last month they were canceling Cuba flights until at least April. And this has been particularly a big setback for Air Transat, as routes to Cuba account for about 8% of its winter flight volume. So both airlines also say they will reduce flight capacity to the island this summer. And, they usually carry more than 500,000 travelers between Canada and Cuba each year. And Air Canada has already suspended flights to Cuba until November. And the Cuban government has blamed its energy woes on a United States oil blockade after U.S. President Donald Trump threatened tariffs against any country that ships fuel to the island.
Let's move over and talk about housing now. The federal government has started accepting applications now for the new GST HST housing credit this week. What does it actually mean for people?
Well, the credit could save first-time homebuyers up to $50,000 on the purchase of a new or heavily renovated home. So it effectively eliminates the federal portion of the sales tax on the purchase of newly built homes worth up to $1 million, and it provides a partial rebate for homes worth up to $1.5 million. So the rebate is meant to spur more housing construction during a sluggish period. And for most, the rebate will come in the form of a discount at the time of purchase, and first-time buyers who entered into an agreement to buy a new home anytime from March 20th last year are also eligible, and they will have to apply online. So the Canada Revenue Agency is accepting applications, but it won't actually start processing them until later this year. Its system for handling them is not fully set up yet. And, the new policy is actually a revamp of a long-standing credit, which has become irrelevant for most buyers because of the rise in housing prices. So the old rebate allows a full credit for homes up to $350,000 and a partial rebate for homes up to $450,000, but obviously, new homes are much more expensive than that these days. And the federal government hadn't adjusted the price threshold since the measure came into effect about 35 years ago. And last year, the Parliamentary Budget Office found only about 4% of housing completions in Canada's 17 largest census areas were even eligible for the full original rebate.
And you have some new data this morning on how Canadians feel about algorithmic pricing.
Yes, that's right. So most Canadians want the government to ban or regulate the use of algorithms to set prices. So half of the respondents in a new poll from Abacus Data say the practice is unfair because it can result in people paying different prices for the same product. So the poll defined algorithmic pricing as the adjustment of prices in real time based on factors such as who is buying, the time of day, and browsing behavior. So the CEO of Abacus says the reason why there is so much sensitivity around it is because of, basic fairness and the core principle that prices should be the same for everybody. But, companies have been using algorithms to set prices for a while now, and it's really built around the maximum willingness to pay. They're going to test you to see how much you're going to pay for something until you say, I don't want it anymore. And, algorithmic pricing is already established in sectors like travel, but has been expanding into other markets such as retail and even rental housing. But experts say there's a difference between an airline charging extra for a last-minute booking and a retailer routinely charging different customers different prices. And this week, the Manitoba government said it would prohibit retailers from using personal data to increase prices for specific consumers. And the rule would apply both in person and online. So, the Manitoba government may be helping kickstart a national conversation here.
All right. Thanks very much, Crystalie. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks, Marcy.
That's Crystalie Ramlicam with our business news. About an hour from now, the mayor of the city of Winnipeg, Scott Gillingham, will be in studio for our monthly interview, so stay tuned. We'll certainly have to ask him about yesterday and data coming out, CBC confirming 6 deaths so far in this fiscal year, actually in the last 3 months in Winnipeg due to fires. And so we heard from the union some concerns about that, and also their ask of the city for some resources that they would like improved, as they say that prevention is a problem in the city. So stay tuned. We'll talk about that and more with Mayor Scott Gillingham in the next hour. You're listening to CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Your morning should be pretty decent in the city of Winnipeg if you're out there walking or waiting for a bus today. It's -7, partly cloudy. Our high today, though, is going to be 4. The wind might be a little bit of a challenge. Winds will be south 30 to 50 this morning in Winnipeg. Well, next on the show, a little bit of music from Juno-nominated singer-songwriter Renee Lamoureux, who is, of course, local. And she's currently in studio working on more of her signature story-driven music. She's been traveling of late. She did some standout performances at Australia's Big Sound and Indigenous Day Live as well. From her new album, Love You, Love Me, this is the title track on 89.3.
Lie in the grass. My head rests in your nook under the sun, like we're the only two that exist. We share secrets to the wind and only she understands. For the first time we could breathe and be ourselves. This is what it means to live. You can count on me no matter what. Against the storm, I am the ark. I'm sure that I love you, baby, and you love me for who I am. We tell our dreams out loud as we trace the clouds in the sky. I'm not afraid to take your hand and tell you how I feel. Chase this kind of high. When it started to rain, we laughed while the heavens hit the ground. We get to be who we want to be.
Renee Lamoureux and Love You, Love Me. That's the title track from her brand new album.
Local news is in decline across Canada, and this is bad news for all of us. With less local news, noise, rumors, and misinformation fill the void, and it gets harder to separate truth from fiction. That's why CBC News is putting more journalists in more places across Canada, reporting on the ground from where you live, telling the stories that matter to all of us. Because local news is big news. Choose news, not noise. CBC News.
I want to mention something coming up tomorrow, in fact. This is some interviews you're going to be doing across our show, but also on Radio Canada. So 6 to 9, the morning show on Radio Canada, hosted by our colleagues there. So we are asking on Facebook, why does French matter in your life in Manitoba? And we're getting a lot of interesting responses. Tomorrow's the International Day of the Francophonie, and so that is why live, our Radio Canada morning show is going to be at the Centre Culturel Metro Franco-Manitoban. So hopefully you can join them if you're up early. Pop in, grab a pastry, say hello, talk to Jeremy, the host over there, about what's going on in your life, why you feel it's important to have French in your life, or if you have an alternate view about French. And that is because tomorrow's the day where we're going to learn more about a bill that was put forward in Manitoba to have our province become officially bilingual. So stay tuned. We will have more tomorrow, and that is because we will have the MLA that put that bill forward also on our show. So he's going to be doing it en français, that interview, and then Simard will be coming down here to do the interview with Corey. So lots of coverage tomorrow. If you want to weigh in, though, meantime, please go to my Facebook page. It's Marcy Marcusa Online. Well, next, let's turn to international news. Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky says he's increasingly concerned about not having enough ammunition to fight. As Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine enters its fifth year, Zelensky made these comments after meeting with the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer this week in London. He says the U.S. is now preoccupied with its own war, along with Israel, against Iran. Tim Mack is here to talk about what's happening in Ukraine. He's editor of the Kiev-based publication The Counteroffensive. He's in Istanbul today. Hello there.
Hey there.
So Zelensky, as we heard, is worried about ammunition shortages. What does he mean? Can you walk us through that?
Well, yeah, when you hear the word ammunition, you might think about bullets or artillery rounds or something like that. But what we're really seeing is a shortage of interceptor missiles. So let me set the scene for you. On any given night in Ukraine, you might see the launching of hundreds of drones and missiles towards Ukrainian cities. To shoot them down, you need what are called interceptor missiles. These are the same missiles that are being expended in the hundreds as a result of the Iran war. And so what Zelensky is describing is a situation that not only affects Ukraine, but anyone who's trying to shoot down a drone, as the global market and the global supply of these interceptor missiles are getting constrained. So it's going to become more costly and more difficult for Ukraine to get these interceptor missiles in order to shoot down incoming Russian drones and Russian missiles, because other people are using them to shoot down Iranian drones and Iranian missiles. And that's going to lead to likely a shortage, likely, unfortunately, more strikes on Ukrainian cities that get through the air defenses.
How is Russia benefiting from the new war in Iran?
Well, I think fundamentally it's benefiting because of oil prices, which have gone through the roof over the last few weeks. If you check the markets today, what you'll find is that crude oil is now above $110 per barrel. At the pump, the latest U.S. figures that I've seen is an increase in the price of gas to the extent of 80% or more over just a couple weeks. So it's obviously creating a huge, huge pain for ordinary consumers. But what it's also doing is benefiting Russia, which is a huge, huge exporter of oil and natural gas. In fact, oil and gas revenues make up a very substantial part of the Russian government's budget, approximately 30%, which it then in turn uses to fund its war in Ukraine. So Russia benefits from a higher price of oil, meaning more money that it can shovel into the war effort. But what it also benefits from is the split in attention between Ukraine's allies in both the European theater and in the Middle East war. So diplomats, military officials, politicians, they're all now thinking about two different wars as opposed to focusing on the one that was existing previous. And so what that means is that negotiations, it appears, have been stalled, and the war continues at great detriment to Ukrainian lives.
There's much reporting on Russia's use of African recruits, as well as the pay for Russian soldiers that keeps men in the provinces signing up to fight. Can you tell us more about the context of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a signal of Russia's inability to recruit adequate numbers for its military. So it's spending tens of thousands of dollars, which is a lot to me and a lot to you, but huge, huge money in Russia, where a single dollar will go a lot further than it might in Canada or the United States. It's been forced to do this and also to recruit foreign soldiers because it's been unable through normal means to recruit enough people for its war effort. It's had to go out and entice people with gigantic bonuses because under normal circumstances, people aren't willing to do the fighting and the dying on the front lines. And that is really it should be a source of concern for the Russian government, because the war, as you point out, has gone on for now more than 5 years, and they just are struggling to put forward the number of soldiers they need to continue their very limited gains on the front lines.
Tim Mack, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Tim Mack, editor of the Kyiv-based publication, The Counteroffensive. We reached him this morning in Istanbul. We'll have more on the national and international news stories coming up on World Report at 7 o'clock. It's 3 minutes to right now. And then locally after 7, a Manitoba doctor who led our province's COVID-19 vaccine task force is now tasked with taking a big step in her career. She is Canada's next Chief Public Health Officer. We are going to talk to Winkler's Joss Reimer about her new role, and that is coming up after 7 o'clock here. In addition, we have our monthly check-in with Winnipeg Mayor Scott Gillingham. As I mentioned, we'll hear more about what the city has to say about the recent fatal fires, and also on another story, why they still want the province's help to lower residential speed limits to 40 in Winnipeg. But Premier Canoe has said, no, the city can go ahead and do this. They don't need us to do it. Of course, the city does need the funds to change all the signage and such. So why is the city's mayor still adamant that they're going to go ahead with this, and how are they going to pay for it if the province continues to say no? So that's just a couple of the topics we'll cover with Scott Gillingham in the next hour here on CBC. It is partly cloudy, -7 in Winnipeg, calm winds right now. It's going to be windier later and a high of 4. Misty in Brandon, it's -3. You're going to get to 7 degrees today with some fog possible this morning. And in Thompson, mostly cloudy, -14. Your high is -4, and you're going to have a 60% chance of some light snow in your forecast. We'll get into what's happening in the traffic situation in a moment. First, let's go to Heather Wells for our news headlines this morning.
Good morning. Well, a Winnipeg nurse says Canada's immigration system is undercutting efforts to hire more healthcare workers. Matt Ushakov says his permanent residency application was rejected because it didn't describe what he does. And that's even though his employer said he is a registered nurse. We're going to hear more about this and how he now worries he may be forced to go back to his native Russia. Enrollment in girls minor hockey in this province is seeing double-digit growth. Hockey Manitoba says it's registered more than 600 new players in the past 2 years. That's nearly a 13% increase. We'll hear from the CEO of Hockey Manitoba coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thanks.
And now to traffic. As I mentioned, there is one issue. Johnson Avenue is closed, Johnson Avenue West. Emergency crews have closed both directions in traffic. This is between Brazier and Henderson Highway, Johnson Avenue West, because of a fire. Crews are expected to be on scene throughout the morning rush and maybe even into the afternoon. So that's a note to avoid the area. So avoid the area and find an alternate route. Johnson Avenue West between Brazier and Henderson. 788-3093 if you have any other updates for Corey, whether it's here in the city of Winnipeg or out in whatever city you're in Manitoba or out on the highways. Stay with us. World Report is coming up next on CBC at the top of the clock. It's 1 minute to 7.
Today on The Current.
Being kind to people, treating people with dignity, and then just listening.
When he was growing up, James Martin worked many jobs as a dishwasher, a caddy, a bank teller. He's since become a Jesuit priest and an advocate for LGBTQ Catholics. James Martin on kindness and how politics intersects with religion.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Energy markets are reacting to a major escalation in the Middle East as Iran ramps up strikes against its neighbors. Brent crude has spiked to $114 a barrel following drone and missile attacks on the key refineries and ports in Kuwait and Qatar. Tehran says it's retaliating for an Israeli bombing of a shared gas field, but the fallout is spreading. Crystal Comansing reports.
The kingdom is not going to succumb to pressure.
Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud's condemnation of strikes on Persian Gulf nations didn't stop there. The foreign minister reserved the right for Saudi Arabia to take military action. Iran is intensifying attacks on neighboring countries after Israel struck the South Pars gas field, a site it shares with Qatar. On his Truth Social site, U.S. President Donald Trump wrote that neither he nor Qatar knew about the bombing ahead of time. He said Israel would not strike there again and told Iran to stand down. It has not. Kuwait Petroleum Corporation's oil port and refinery complex south of the capital was hit by a drone. The fire contained, according to local media. Qatar Energy says the Ras Laffan site has now suffered extensive damage after back-to-back waves of hits by Iran. Arab and Muslim leaders are calling for the hostilities to end, saying they are not participants in the war. As they gathered for urgent talks in Riyadh Wednesday, strikes were launched. The Saudi foreign minister.
If Iran doesn't stop, that is the mood also I heard in this room earlier. I think there will be almost nothing that can reestablish that trust.
Fragments of an Iranian missile also killed 3 Palestinian women in the occupied West Bank overnight in a town near Hebron. Most in the occupied territories don't have shelters and rely on sirens from nearby Israeli communities. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, Jerusalem.
The U.S. intelligence leadership is back in the hot seat today as lawmakers demand more evidence to justify the ongoing war with Iran. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard is heading to the House after a combative day in the Senate. Joining me from Washington is Willie Lowry. Willie, what's the focus of the House committee this morning?
Much like yesterday's Senate intelligence hearing, today's House hearing will likely focus on the U.S. war with Iran. Yesterday, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard sidestepped questions around whether or not Iran posed an imminent threat, something the administration has alleged in recent weeks. She says that's ultimately up to the president to decide. While the hearing is a yearly event, representatives will try to figure out why exactly the U.S. went to war with Iran and what evidence the intelligence community had suggesting that Iran was either about to attack U.S. troops or trying to actively rebuild their nuclear capabilities.
Willie, we seem to be seeing a growing divide amongst Trump Republicans over support for the war.
That's right. Perhaps the most obvious example of the tension that is building among Republicans is the recent resignation of Joe Kent as director of the National Counterterrorism Center and a former Republican congressional candidate in the state of Washington. Kent publicly resigned over the war and spoke with Tucker Carlson last night.
Was Iran on the verge of getting a nuclear weapon?
No, they weren't, 3 weeks ago when this started. And they weren't in June either.
It's important to note, though, that recent surveys still suggest a vast majority of Republicans still support the war.
Willie Lowry in our Washington bureau. Thanks, Willie.
My pleasure.
The Rafah border crossing between Gaza and Egypt has reopened for the first time since February 28th. Israel had closed the crossing nearly 3 weeks ago following the outbreak of the war with Iran, citing security concerns. Ambulances and aid trucks were seen moving across the border today, transporting wounded Palestinians for medical treatment in Egypt. Despite an ongoing ceasefire, the Gaza Health Ministry says nearly 680 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli fire since October. Israel reports that 4 of its soldiers have been killed by militants during that same period. To Pakistan now. At least 16 people are dead after a severe thunderstorm lashed Karachi overnight. Most of the victims were killed when a wall they were using for shelter collapsed during the height of the storm. Dozens of others were taken to hospital with weather-related injuries. Forecasters say the heavy rain and strong winds will continue to affect the region as the system moves west. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is making a high-profile stop today with an appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience. The podcast, a global powerhouse, Poilievre recorded the 3-hour interview during a multi-city tour of the United States, which wraps up today with a keynote speech in New York. Joining us now from our parliamentary bureau, Rafi Boudjikanian. Rafi, why is Pierre Poilievre choosing this specific platform right now?
Bottom line is eyeballs. Joe Rogan, huge platform, 20 million viewers on YouTube alone. This is a chance for Pierre Poilievre to attain visibility he may otherwise not have. So Americans maybe have some idea who he is, but I'm not sure anyone's paid much attention to the opposition leader in Canada other than that viral moment he had chewing out a reporter while munching on that apple a couple of years ago. And it is a bit of a tradition for Canadian leaders to reach out on these high visibility American platforms. If you think of Mark Carney, he kind of soft launched his bid for the Liberal leadership last year by appearing on The Daily Show. So if Poilievre's goal during this trip is to defend Canadian interests in the ongoing trade disputes with the U.S., there's hardly a bigger spotlight than an appearance on Joe Rogan's show.
Nonetheless, Rafi, there could be some risks that come with this.
Joe Rogan is an inherently controversial person. He's had to apologize for using the N-word on his podcast. He's floated anti-vaccine conspiracy theories during the COVID-19 pandemic. That caused some musicians like Canadian Neil Young to temporarily pull his music from Spotify, one of the carriers for Rogan's show. Yes, there are some risks. In fact, at some point, Joe Rogan last year during the election campaign said on his show that he'd invited Poilievre to appear, and the leader had turned him down, calling him too problematic.
Rafi Boudjikani in our Parliamentary Bureau. Thanks, Rafi.
You're welcome.
Governor General Mary Simon will welcome 32 new appointees to the Order of Canada at Rideau Hall later this morning. Former CBC correspondent Melissa Fung, trade advocate Flavio Volpi, and broadcaster George Stroumboulopoulos are among those being invested today. The order recognizes extraordinary contributions to the nation or a remarkable dedication to community. A Fredericton teenager says she's being effectively let go by the mental health system just because she was doing well. She says the Regional Health Authority closed her file because she hadn't needed an appointment in months. As Alison McCormick reports, the move comes as New Brunswick struggles with a massive shortage of psychiatrists.
With disorders like mine, my mental health may be fine one day and fluctuate greatly the next.
Avery Jardine lives with borderline personality disorder, a condition she's been managing for years. At times, she relies heavily on her psychiatrist through Horizon Health. But after not needing an appointment for months, she says she was told her file would be closed.
They told us there's too many people who need help, and they can't keep holding on to people who might need help.
The Horizon Health Network declined an interview, but it says access to psychiatry in Fredericton has actually improved this year with the addition of 5 new psychiatrists. Still, there are more than 33 vacancies for provincial psychiatrists in New Brunswick. According to the Canadian Mental Health Association, the province has half the number of psychiatrists per 100,000 people compared to the Canadian average.
It was disheartening to see that she was let go.
Deidre Jardine is Avery's mother. She says she fought hard to get her daughter access to that support and worries what they'll do the next time she needs help.
The hopelessness of feeling that if she does need the help, what do we have to go through to get the help again?
Jardine says she has insurance that covers private psychiatric care, but with a cap of $500, that would be gone in just 3 appointments. Alison McCormick, CBC News, Fredericton.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. Remember, for news anytime, go to our website, cbcnews.ca. And this hour, we can tell you on cbc.ca, there's a lot of context about the war with Iran, including how fuel prices spike around the world, this as the price of oil continues to climb. cbcnews.ca. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg. We're expecting to be above 0 today in your forecast. Welcome to Thursday, March 19th. Thanks for being here and hanging out with us. This hour on the show, we're going to hear a great story about Hockey Manitoba saying that female minor hockey is booming, with more young players taking to the ice than ever before. We're going to hear more from some of those young women. Also, a doctor from Winkler will be Canada's next Chief Public Health Officer. We're going to have a conversation with Dr. Joss Reimer about her new role. And then Scott Gillingham, the mayor of the city of Winnipeg, will be in studio for our regular monthly interview. And we're going to ask him about yesterday and some developments that we heard about fires in the city. We're going to hear what he has to say when the union is saying that they need the city's help to deal with some recent fatal fires. And that number is larger than it's been in the past, with 6 people dying in the last 3 months. So we're going to talk to the mayor about that and more. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells for more details on stories. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, people in the small western Manitoba town of Rivers are still coming to grips with news of a plot to attack their local high school. A 14-year-old boy is in custody facing a charge of uttering threats. He was arrested on the school bus Monday morning. We're going to hear from a parent in Rivers coming up. As well, the family of a Manitoba woman who died while waiting for heart surgery has learned their mother's case was accidentally put in the wrong pile. In 2024, Debbie Fuster was told she needed heart surgery within 3 weeks. She died while on the waiting list. We'll hear from her daughter in our next local news at 7:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
And now we go into our forecast for more details there on the weather. Here's Abby.
Yeah, Marcy, the province is actually feeling these mild temperatures in the southern regions, while up north we still see wind chills close to -40 as we travel towards Churchill this morning. For Winnipeg and the Red River Valley region, today's forecast for the city and nearby regions features more like a mix of sunny conditions, some clouds in the mix, and then that would clear as you get into the afternoon. We're currently seeing temperatures around -7 at the Forks and at the airport at this time under partly cloudy skies, with morning temperatures staying around this -7 for most of the day. Now for the city, we're expecting a high of 4 degrees today. Though be mindful, it's still going to feel windy at some point, and the wind chill you will definitely feel during the morning hours. Across the southern regions, it's more of a misty conditions and some clouds from Brandon towards Gimli this morning. We're seeing temperatures around -3 to -10. Highs for most of the regions gets to 8 degrees with clear skies. While further north, we're seeing temperatures around -12 to -25 with wind chills and the values of -35 around Churchill this morning. Do expect a calm and clear night, while tomorrow brings even more warmer temperatures. Right now, Winnipeg, we are at -7. We warm up to 4 degrees later today.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey, why are small vehicles so intriguing?
They're so cute and tiny.
I
They
know.
just fit into so many little places.
We're looking at one right now.
I know. Yeah, I remember actually when I was in Jerusalem, they have these very narrow tractors. They're they fit like half a person. Somehow humans fit it, and they like fit through like the very narrow old city. And I remember just like being like enamored,
fascinated
by them. Yeah.
So
it's
Corey
like
and I right now
But
are
here it's like
enamored
that.
by this small vehicle that is running up and down the sidewalks in downtown Winnipeg. We can see it on Portage Ave through our studio window. I think he's sanding actually what the
think so,
workers
too.
doing in there.
Yeah.
So, how needed is that today? Abby was talking about some melting and such. Are we hearing about any issues in traffic?
Yeah. So in terms of slipperiness, at least the sidewalks, I've noticed are actually more or less okay. Roads don't seem to be too bad. The biggest issue actually right now is at Johnson Avenue West. Is actually closed both ways between Brazier and Henderson because crews are dealing with a fire in the area. And that is expected, the city says, to be closed for much of the morning, both ways, and maybe even into the afternoon. So you want to avoid that area if you can. Causing some big backups I heard earlier from Megan Ketchison, who was on scene reporting. If you do see anything else going on, if you're walking, you're biking, you're driving, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, Canada's next Chief Public Health Officer is from Manitoba. Dr. Joss Reimer led the COVID-19 vaccine task force for our province, and she served as past president now of the Canadian Medical Association. And she's given us some time to talk about her brand new role. She joins us over Zoom. Good morning.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
Congratulations from home.
Thank you so much. It's so exciting. I'm both excited and anxious about this, but can't wait to get things going.
So you've lived in a lot of places already. You grew up though in Winkler, Manitoba. People might know. What have you learned from the different communities that you've interacted with that you might bring into your new role in health?
I think I've learned two almost competing ideas at the same time. The first is that there's so many different perspectives, so many different experiences. And so having lived in multiple different provinces, different countries, I hope to be able to bring some of those perspectives and the things I've learned to the job at the national level. But I've also seen a lot of the same issues come up over and over again. And so there's a lot that we have in common, a lot of common strengths and common challenges. And so we can also really learn from each other and build on that. So in both of those situations, I think we need to tailor things, but also work together to learn and do everything we can to improve the health of all Canadians.
Let's start with common strengths. What do you think the rest of Canada might learn from Manitoba?
There's an awful lot of resilience in the communities here. I don't know if it's the cold weather or what it is, but there's a warmth and strength in the community here that I have benefited from for most of my life. I've loved living in this province, and so to be able to take the lessons about how to care for your neighbors during the COVID pandemic, it was really inspiring to see how people took care of each other. That's something that's really important in any community, and really important when you're talking about health outcomes as well, to make sure that we're thinking about each other and all of the needs of everyone in our community.
How challenging is it when you are thinking about health outcomes to ensure that the approach to each community is going to work for them? Because we continually hear that you can put out health information. However, if people aren't getting it from a source that they trust, maybe they won't necessarily connect to it. So is that part of what you think that the future of getting messages, important messages across to Canadians is going to be, is almost trying to find a way to personalize?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it, is that we need to make sure that when we're building trust, that we're doing it at multiple levels at the same time and that we're all sharing similar messages. I know that we can provide great education and great information, but what really moves the needle is when people who have trusted relationships have those conversations. So I want to make sure that the healthcare providers on the ground who are interacting with their patients, that the community leaders who are well respected and trusted in the community have the same information and are sharing the same messages that we are at the provincial level and now at the national level, so that we can see that there's consistency, that we're all pushing in the same direction, and that we all want Canadians to be healthy.
What are our shared challenges then to that end that are top of mind in your new job?
I mean, there's a few challenges that we're seeing across the board. In the health system, there's challenges to access to care, whether that's primary care, whether that's emergency surgery. And when you don't have access to a family doctor, for example, it's really hard to do things like get your vaccines, do all the preventative things to keep you healthy, let alone managing illnesses once they're there. And then we also have a lot of challenges around mis and disinformation, because social media in particular has been really increasing the amount of mis and disinformation that people have to face on a daily basis. And when you're covered by that onslaught of misinformation, it can be so hard to figure out what to believe and what decisions to make for your own health. And both of these are things that we're seeing everywhere in this country.
When you think about how the pandemic was handled, just to go back to that time, and you think about where some of the mistrust sort of grew from as well, where do you think, can you look at that now and think about where things might have actually gone wrong, so to speak?
It was a really tough time. And whether we made the right decisions or the wrong decisions, putting even that aside, it was a really difficult time for people. People lost their jobs, their income, they lost access to family and friends, they were isolated. And so it makes a lot of sense that people would have lost trust as well, even if we were arguing that the decisions were the right ones at the time. And so what we need to do is really put back a lot of energy into building up those relationships and helping people feel like they're valued, that their experience is important, that what's best for them is what's driving the decisions. And that is going to take years of effort at all levels. So I'm really looking forward to playing a small part at the federal level in hopefully helping Canadians to rebuild that trust and see that the decisions that we're making are with their best interest in mind.
Why did you want the job?
For the same reason that I wanted to go into medicine, for the same reason that I went into public health, I have always been so passionate about trying to improve the health of my community, to make the world a better place. And I loved the one-on-one care that you get to provide as a doctor and being there for those important moments in people's lives. But then I also started to see a lot of the same problems coming up over and over again. And so to get to work in public health, where you get to try to look at the whole community and think, what does this community need to be healthier? How do I prevent these things from happening? How do I keep people out of the hospital? That has been such a rewarding career. I've loved being able to get paid to just try to make my community stronger. And so this felt like a natural next step where, my community might be the people right around me in my city, but it's also my country. And so I can't wait to take the learnings I've had from all of these other jobs to this federal position.
I read something really interesting just before you go here, where you said that when you sort of came into understanding the role and wanting to move forward, to lead Canada through this in this way, in this job, that you said you started realizing that people trust you, trust each other more, and medical professionals like you more when you actually are able to come out front and say, here's what I know, but actually here's what I don't know. Tell me a little bit about what that means.
Yeah, that was feedback that I got quite a few times during the pandemic. People said that, I felt like I could trust you because you told us when you didn't know the answer. And so I really took that to heart, that it's important that we don't go out being overly confident about things that we may not know. It feels a bit counterintuitive. It feels like we should go out and just speak confidently all the time. But it was very clear when Manitobans gave me their feedback that it was important that I came out and said, this is what I know today, this is what I don't know, and here's the decisions that we're making based on that information. And so I want to take that lesson to the federal job and be really transparent with Canadians about what I know, what I don't know, and why we're making the decisions that we are, because that was clearly told to me that was a really important part of the role.
Are you wearing a little polar bear?
I am wearing a polar bear. Yes, it's very Canadian. I bought this in Churchill, so there you go, Manitoba.
You can take that with you to your new job in Ottawa. Thank you very much, Dr. Reimer. Appreciate your time today.
I'm so happy to be here.
Dr. Joss Reimer, I spoke with her earlier this week. She is, of course, from Winkler and led us through the pandemic in many ways in Manitoba, but now she will be making the move to Ottawa. She's Canada's new Chief Public Health Officer. Sports coming up in a few minutes. To get us there, music from Goody Grace. This is a nice place to visit. Speaking of Manitoba, Goody Grace, a pop artist originally from Selkirk. The latest album inspired by the trip between his two homes of LA and there.
We feel the steady blowing, our memories, the wind is whispering. Like footprints in the snow, by morning light will you be disappear? And man, it's over with the pack of spirits in my brother's truck. Never used to care to drive, but now my leg's going up. So there was something I'd forgotten, I just had to leave the house. And Verna says she missed me, she knows I can't stick around, but it's a nice place to visit for now. Standing on a rooftop, sirens punctuate the city streets. No matter where I am, I'm homesick, wondering where I should be. In Los Angeles, blowing smoke in a blacked out Beamer, wearing dark sunglasses just to hide my tears. Let her know I love her if you see her all the time. I'm here for the moment, you know I can't stick around, but it's a nice place to visit for now. Into my head I often go, where the baggage of my soul is stowed away. It's myself I'm trying to know, but there's wreckage all along this path I take. I'm the pilot of this flight, who's just trying to leave the ground. No matter where I'm landing, I know I won't stick around, but it's a nice place to visit for now. Yeah, it's a nice place to visit for now.
What is it about the simple picking of a guitar in someone's voice, huh? That's Goody Grace, a nice place to visit. Pop artist originally from Selkirk, Manitoba. It is 7:25 a.m. on 89.3. It's time for morning sports on CBC, and let's turn our attention to Paul McGowan for the latest. Hi there.
Hi, Marcy.
So let's start where we ended yesterday. Basketball, the WNBA and its players now finally do have an agreement.
And as with so many labor negotiations in sports, this was a long, slow process. I think back to December when the league said we need a deal by January 9th. Well, 2 months and 10 days later, the league and the players' union, yes, have a verbal agreement on a new CBA. At first blush, it is a massive step forward for WNBA players. There are a bunch of numbers, of course, but maybe the most important is that the minimum salary jumps from $66,000 last year to over $300,000 in the coming year. Here's Brianna Stewart on how the process played out.
Throughout the entire week, we were able to give the player perspective on what we thought and also what would be the most beneficial for the entire league. We also popped champagne over it because I think both sides deserved it, and we're working tirelessly to kind of get this done. The part that made this process so difficult was just knowing that there was a lot to be done. I definitely don't want to be a lawyer, like, ever. They're great at what they do. Not my interest or my hobby at this point.
Interesting to hear her give props to the league there, even after a long negotiation between the two sides. It sounds like good news all around for the WNBA, who now, of course, have to condense an entire off-season into just a handful of weeks.
Let's go to hockey next. Sidney Crosby returned to the ice last night after that injury at the Olympics.
Now, that injury is still a painful memory for Canadian hockey fans, probably for Sidney Crosby as well. But yeah, he was back in the Penguins lineup last night. Marcy, apparently at practice early in the day, Crosby's longtime teammate, Evgeny Malkin, came off the ice shouting gleefully about the fact that Crosby was returning. Crosby himself said he felt okay about his return.
Not bad. I mean, definitely some rust, but just got to find a way to make sure that, adapt as soon as possible. I mean, every game is so big, to come back at this point in the year, you got to find a way to get that timing and to make sure that, my game is where it needs to be. So, just try to keep getting better, everyone.
Rust for Sidney Crosby, by the way, is a goal and an assist. 2 points for him in an overtime loss to Carolina. The Penguins 3 points clear of a playoff spot. The Jets, by the way, are in action tonight in Boston.
Let's end on curling. Team Canada now tied for first in Calgary.
We talked yesterday about that first loss for Carrie Anderson at the World Women's Curling Championship. She and Team Canada rebounded yesterday. Back-to-back wins over Turkey and Scotland. The win over Turkey was easy and breezy, 9-3. It looked as though it might be heading that way against Scotland. It was 4-1 for Canada early, but Scotland ends up tying things at 5. Here's Shannon Burchard on the eventual 7-5 victory.
It was easy to get down on ourselves because we had a lead early and let it go a little bit. But if anything, this team can stay together and be gritty and keep up the play. We know that about ourselves, and we know that sometimes when things get tough, that's when we shine the most. Fortunately, things have been pretty great so far this week, and things have been coming together pretty well, and we just have to carry forward what we're learning and just keep adjusting.
You might think that Canada, after 2 games yesterday, would get a bit of a break today. No such luck. Anderson and company back on the ice twice again today. Korea this morning in about a half hour, and Norway later on today.
Man, they're going to gut it out. Speaking of no sleep, that continues for Anderson. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Marcy.
We have a couple of things to mention in traffic here that have been developing while we were talking to Paul about sports. Northbound Waverly and Wilkes, stall blocking the northbound middle lane, keep left or right to pass. So that's northbound Waverly and Wilkes. Also, just a reminder, Johnson Avenue West is closed. Emergency crews have closed both direction for Johnson Avenue West between Brazier and Henderson. That's because of a fire. Crews are expecting to be on scene throughout the morning rush and also into the afternoon. So that's the detail we have so far. You might want to to avoid the area and use an alternate route. Give Corey a call if you need to update the commute in any way. We'll pass it along here on CBC. 788-3093. Your news from Manitoba is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is -7, and the melting continues on this, the last official day of winter. Spring arrives tomorrow morning. Mix of sun and clouds this morning, more sun this afternoon, windy, and a high today of 4. A Winnipeg nurse says Canada's immigration system is undercutting efforts to hire more healthcare workers. Matt Ushakov says his permanent residency application got rejected because it didn't describe what he does. That's even though his employer said he is a registered nurse. Ushakov says he wasn't given a chance to add more documents.
Every government, every city, every province, and the federal government as well is telling people that we're very short of nurses. We need every nurse we can get, and it's very frustrating to see that when it comes to it, it's not as easy as it appears to be.
Ushakov fears he may be forced to go back to his native Russia, where he could get conscripted. The Manitoba Nurses Union says the situation is very concerning, adding the system desperately needs nurses. People in the small western Manitoba town of Rivers are still coming to grips with news of a plot to attack their local high school. A 14-year-old boy is in custody facing a charge of uttering threats. The suspect was arrested on the school bus Monday morning. Renee Favron moved to Rivers with her family last year. She has a son in elementary school and is shocked by this news.
Especially having a child who takes the school bus as well. I'm very grateful that the situation was resolved, obviously, before anything had happened. So I'm super grateful for all of that. But I mean, there's always that part of you that, it hits close to home.
Favron says many people are still processing the news. A 15-year-old girl in Nova Scotia was also arrested. Police say the two teens were planning a coordinated attack at schools in Rivers and Bridgewater, Nova Scotia. The family of a woman who died while waiting for heart surgery has just learned human error may have played a role in her death. Debbie Fuster's family say they were told their mother's file was accidentally put in the long-term surgical pile instead of being categorized as urgent. Her daughter, Colleen Dick, says a doctor filled out the surgery form incorrectly. Last year, Dick and her family proposed Debbie's Law. It would let patients know how long they'd have to wait for surgery and discuss options for care outside the province.
If you're not tracking how many people are dying in waiting rooms, if you're not tracking how many people are dying on waiting lists, how can you tell if you're doing a good job? So it's the tracking, it's the transparency with the patient to empower them. And I don't think that sending someone out of province is this big, horrible thing. It's a person's life.
Dick says they want to see more accountability in Manitoba's healthcare system. The trial of a Winnipeg man accused of killing his mother as a teen continues today. The now 23-year-old is charged with second-degree murder. CBC's Caitlin Garlick reports.
The man's father told jurors on Wednesday about how worried his son was after his mother was killed, worried that he hadn't locked the door before he went out that morning, and about what might have happened if he'd tried to do CPR on his mother when he found her. Jurors previously heard the teen had left home to run errands around 9 a.m. that day. He got home less than 2 hours later and called 911. The woman's skull was broken in multiple places, and she suffered a broken arm and several broken fingers trying to defend herself. Prosecutors say the teen was the only person who had the opportunity to kill his mom, but the defense argues it could have been a coworker who she previously filed a sexual harassment complaint against. Caitlin Gowerluck, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Energy markets are reacting to a major escalation in the Middle East as Iran ramps up strikes against its neighbors. Brent crude has spiked to $114 US a barrel following drone and missile attacks on key refineries and ports in Kuwait and Qatar. Tehran says it is retaliating for an Israeli bombing of a shared gas field, but the fallout is spreading. You can hear the latest on the war in the Mid-East as well as other national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. More girls are taking a shot at playing hockey in Manitoba. Enrollment is up nearly 13% in 2 years. That's according to Hockey Manitoba. CEO Trevor Bunai says that they are seeing a significant uptake among the youngest players, where kids learn important skills.
Learning to skate backwards, handling a stick and stick handling, and working within a system with a team. It's going to happen when you're young. You're going to learn and improve over time with good coaching, and you're going to stay in the game for hopefully the rest of your life.
Bunai says having role models like the new Professional Women's Hockey League helps shine a light on the sport for more girls. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
We're going to hear from some of those girls who are playing in just a moment. Right now, let's go to Abby for our regional forecast.
Yeah, we're expecting a mix of sun and clouds today with mild conditions. That's going to be warming up the southern regions. Though up north, we're still seeing the wind chills impacting regions around Churchill. So folks should be cautious of biting morning wind chills before conditions would moderate in the afternoon period. For the southern regions, we're looking at temperatures currently hovering between -3 to -10 under some clearing skies. We're waking up to cloudy conditions, though that should clear as you get into the morning. Winnipeg right now, -7, partly cloudy outside with breezy south winds. We're expecting a mix of sun and clouds with a general clearing trend throughout the afternoon period. We'll see temperatures climb to a mild high of 4 degrees today, more like a welcome shift from those morning wind chills we've been getting. And that's the condition for most of the regions down south. We'll see temperatures around that region and highs between -7 to -8. Up north, we are still seeing temperatures between -6 to -25 in the Churchill region.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey, the commute.
The biggest issue this morning is Johnson between Brazier and Henderson. There's a house fire there that crews have been dealing with, and that means that it's closed both ways. That's Johnson Avenue West, both ways closed. And I actually got a call from Chris who caught him off guard, and he says it's a total scramble. People are getting caught off guard. They're trying to go on all the back roads. He called it a proper gong show out there. So heads up, you just want to avoid that area. City says it might be an issue into the afternoon, but for sure through the morning rush hour. So heads up there. Other than that, if you do see anything else going on, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Corey Funk.
Thank you.
23 minutes to 8 o'clock. The mayor's still ahead on this half hour of Information Radio live in studio. Scott Gillingham for our monthly interview. First, though, let's hear more about that story Heather was just mentioning about enrollment in girls hockey being on the rise in Manitoba. The biggest growth among girls between the ages of 4 and 17 years old, as we've been hearing. They say female minor hockey enrollment seen a 13% increase in the past 2 years, in case you missed the stats. Now, some attribute it to the Olympics, the growing popularity of the Professional Women's Hockey League, which launched in 2023 and, by the way, is in Winnipeg for a game on Sunday. Pretty exciting. CBC's Brittany Greenslade spoke with Jana Hefford, the Executive Vice President of Hockey Operations for the PWHL.
Since the launch of the PWHL, and I think certainly attribute that to the visibility of the league. And it's important to be able to see the games, whether it be on broadcast, social media, us to be able to storytell around our athletes and just for people to feel sort of represented. So now I think young girls growing up, seeing something they can aspire to, being inspired by these women and really, maybe dreams being born that they want to chase to play in the PWHL one day.
As somebody that has grown up in sport, talk to me a little bit about the importance of having female role models to have something to aspire to look up to, and to get more people involved.
Well, I think sport in general is such an important part of development for kids, both boys and girls. And I think for young girls to be able to, again, see themselves in the game, so see people that look like them, realize what's possible. As I was growing up as a young girl playing hockey, all I could see was men playing the game and realizing at one point or another that wasn't a realistic dream for me. So now for young girls to be able to see more women playing professionally in hockey as well as other sports, soccer, basketball, volleyball, it's just so important to try to keep girls in sport. We've, seen all the research around what sport does for young kids in terms of character development, in terms of confidence, of course, health, both physical and mental. And so we want to keep kids in sport as long as we can. And it's not always about playing in the professional leagues, but it's about being active. It's about becoming a fan and perhaps for some of them becoming a professional athlete.
You mentioned a little bit about when you were growing up, you didn't have those women in hockey in particular to be really having as that role model. So for you growing up, what would it have meant to have something like the PWHL to be looking at, aspiring to?
I think for me growing up, it would have been amazing. I grew up watching the NHL, dreaming of winning a Stanley Cup, really idolizing male players in the game, and wasn't very old when I realized that that wasn't an opportunity for me simply because of my gender. And so that's a tough thing for, I think, young kids to process. And having my own kids, daughters, and a son, I never want them to feel like they are limited because of their gender. So now to have young girls be able to, easily look up, easily find, easily watch these women playing hockey is a complete game changer for any young girl interested in the game. And so I think we're all proud to be a part of that and excited to continue to build those dreams for young girls.
Yes, Jana Hefford, the Executive Vice President of Hockey Operations for the PWHL, talking to CBC's Brittany Greenslade there. So what do young girls have to say about the sport that is growing now in Manitoba, women's hockey? CBC's Gavin Axelrod spoke to a few players over at Varsity View Community Centre in Charleswood.
Annie Lemoyne.
Tell me, what's your favorite part about playing hockey?
That it's not super easy. It's a bit difficult, so it's not the easiest thing to do. Charlie, Nelson.
How do you feel when you're on the ice? How'd you feel out there today?
Nervous because I don't know. I just always feel nervous.
When you're playing on the ice, how do you feel out there?
Unstoppable.
Tell me about that. What's that feel like?
Well, it just feels like I can win.
Do you watch the PWHL at all?
Sometimes.
Are you gonna go to the game on the weekend? How are you feeling for that?
Excited because it's my first PWHL game that's live.
What do you think it's gonna be like to see girls playing professional hockey?
Probably different than how I see other girls play professional hockey. So I'm just excited for that.
Is that something that you'd want to do one day, play professional hockey?
Maybe.
Do you think though that one day you'd maybe want to play hockey professionally?
Yeah, but I'm going to one of the games.
On the weekend? Tell me about that. How are you feeling for that?
I'm excited.
Taylor Hominick.
How long have you been coaching for?
About 10 years, but these kids this season.
You're going to start on girls hockey and its growth in Manitoba. And we've heard that in the province, in Winnipeg this year. It's way up. What do you make of that?
I think it's great. The girls need a space that they can enjoy the game. I grew up where only boys were able to play, and we had our own change rooms that were made out of, broom closets. So it's really great that they have the team spirit around them. And it's it's awesome.
What do you think it's going to mean for some of these girls to see that game?
I think there's two things. I think it means a lot for the parents, for the girls that grew up and we played with the boys and could only see male NHL players. And now we have girls who can follow this sport into college or beyond and do the things that dreams are made of, right? To see that on a full ice with a stadium full of people or an arena full of people cheering them on, that's pretty lovely.
It's so cool and it's so needed. I mean, I don't count myself as being all that old. I'm 52 years old. I grew up in this city, but I think about all those women who played as young girls, who played ringette. And as I said earlier on the air, I mean, ringette is its own sport, but I know a lot of them would have rather been playing hockey. They had no avenue, and they might have been fantastic hockey players. So I hope they found their way into coaching now, or maybe they're the parents of young daughters who are getting on the ice. That was CBC's Gavin Axelrod talking to girls hockey coach there, Taylor Hominick. And players, they were so cute. Charlie and Nelson and Annie Lemoyne, who, if you're watching the video, had the little marks from their helmets on their cheeks. That's what the red marks were on their faces. They just came off the ice at Varsity View Community Centre. So I was mentioning the PWHL game that's coming up in Winnipeg on Sunday. So the professional women's team's going to be playing here, two of them on neutral ice. It is sold out at Canada Life Centre between the Montreal Victoire and Ottawa Charge. But we have tickets to give away. So we have one pair of tickets. The contest closes at 5 o'clock today. All you have to do to enter to win is call us and do your best. She shoots! She scores! However that's going to sound. That's my shot at it. Some of you are doing a really good lead up too, like LaRock's got the puck. I know she's a defender, but a lot of you were calling yesterday. So please call. Give us your best She Shoots, She Scores. And the number to call is 788-3205. If you would rather send a video, like maybe you have a little one and you want to help them do a She Shoots, She Scores, you can send a video to enter radio 893 at cbc.ca. Contest closes at 5 o'clock. Tomorrow we will announce on the air who's going to that game on Sunday.
I'm Suresh Das. I've spent my career writing about the local favorites that make Canada's food scene truly unique. I've been into a chili. Woo! From vibrant street food to comforting traditional dishes.
The most important ingredients in jollof rice, love.
To innovative, personal twists. Butter chicken lasagna.
Butter chicken lasagna. That's what made it all happen.
I believe every bite tells a story. Now, I want to share those stories with you.
New series Locals Welcome with Suresh Das. Watch free on CBC Gem.
All right, 7:45 a.m. It's Thursday morning. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and you're with CBC 89.3 FM. Mayor Scott Gillingham is back in studio for our monthly interview. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
Thank you for being here. So obviously in our monthly interview, we go through a couple of topics usually. I want to start with one that's quite serious. So as you know, and as we've all been hearing, we now have 6 people from our community in Winnipeg who've died in house fires. That's in under 3 months. Yesterday on the show, right around this time, Nick Casper was with us, president of the United Firefighters. Here's what he said to us.
I think we need to ask ourselves, when we're going to follow the data that's put in front of us, when we're going to follow our own strategic direction and master plan, and when we're going to start investing in fire prevention, public education, and doing what needs to be done to reduce these incidents from occurring in the first place.
So one of the things, Mayor, that he's talking about there is a plan that came out in 2020 that looked at a shortage of 11 positions in fire prevention, 2 in public education, 4 in investigations. Where are we at with filling those positions?
Well, specifically, that'd be a question for the chief as far as the progress that has been made, because there is progress that's been made. We've increased the fire budget this year over last year by over $10 million, and so we're adding more firefighting positions. We've added more in the last couple of years. There's 40 that have been added. There's more coming, 20 coming this year. We've also added, we're adding a whole wellness center unit so that we can get our firefighters who are perhaps off work right now back to work. So having more personnel on the front lines is really critical in this work as well.
How concerned are you when you hear, what's being called a quote unquote shocking number of fatal house fires, 5 times the rate in Winnipeg when you look at fatality rates across Canada? And then you have, the union and firefighters in their front lines. The union says that's what they're hearing back from members, that a lot of this is preventable.
Well, obviously, any loss of life is tragic, and I know that our firefighters take their work very, very seriously. And those fires are being investigated, being looked at to see what the cause might have been, the response times on all of them as well. And so it is concerning when we've got loss of life, and have this many individuals lose their life in fires at the start of the year is concerning. And I know that our chief and his team are really looking into this and taking this seriously.
Yeah, for Winnipeggers listening, I know that when Casper was talking about fire prevention and education yesterday, it raised some questions for people. Like, does the city have authority to actually go into people's homes to make sure, for example, they have smoke alarms and fire extinguishers? Like, can the prevention be that direct?
Well, we do have, fire investigators. We do have fire prevention. There are inspections as well that can be done, and you'll see our fire department, inspecting businesses, and they can inspect homes as well. Part of the challenge right now, though, is we have an integrated fire paramedic response, and you'll often see fire trucks showing up for medical calls. Right now, in fact, our firefighters go to more medical calls than they go to fire calls. And when they're tied up at medical calls because there's not an ambulance available, that means they can't get to some of the inspection work. You may not be able to get to some of the inspection preventative work.
So those are the
quickly.
Same people? If they weren't tied up, then they could be free to do education
They can
prevention?
do that. I mean, it's a different step, but they can do that work as well. But the point of the matter is, and I've talked about this with the Premier, we need more paramedics. We need more ambulances. Our city's grown by 80,000 people in the last few years, and we haven't seen a corresponding increase of ambulances and paramedics. And our ambulances and our paramedics are just going all day long, all shift long, all evening long. So
for you, that's part of the solution when it comes to freeing up firefighters.
For sure. To free up our firefighters and our fire trucks to fight fires and be available when a fire call comes in.
But we're not talking about that. We're talking about education prevention. So then you would have to take those people that are more available and redirect them to doing the prevention.
But my point is you'd have more staff available on the front lines for the chief to deploy as the chief needs to employ. And so we really need more paramedics. And we need more ambulances in the city right now to free up our firefighters.
Before we move from this, we actually have one more thing that Casper had shared about the strategic plan in 2020.
We're looking to the east of us, to the west of us. Cities like Calgary and Toronto are investing with hundreds of new firefighters, new stations, new apparatus to keep up with population growth. That reference in 2020 was the city's own master plan and strategic direction, which estimated call volumes out to 2040. And we exceeded those years ago and have added no new resources.
So you started by saying that the budget's gone up. So how do those two things square? No new resources?
Well, with all due respect to I appreciate that Mr. Casper has a job to do. That's not correct. We've added new resources. We've added more net new firefighters. We've increased the number of firefighters over the past couple of years by adding 40. We're adding 40 more in the next couple of years. We've added new fire halls, new apparatus, new vehicles. So the investments are being made. As I said, the fire budget went up this year again by 4%, over $10 million. So we're adding more investment and more resources in the fire department.
We're going to talk about a different topic. Now, you mentioned what you're looking for from the province in terms of ambulances, paramedics. I want to ask you the budget slated for next Tuesday, the provincial budget. What specifically are you also hoping will be in that for the city of Winnipeg?
Yes, ambulances and paramedics certainly is something I hope. I hope there's some clear indication of the province's commitment to and hopefully investment in the North End Water Pollution Control Centre. That's critical as well.
You still don't have that from them?
On the third phase, we don't have. The discussions are going really well with the provincial and federal governments about their respective funding for the third phase of the North End plant.
But you want that nailed down?
We need that nailed down. Okay. We really need that nailed down. So that's the biggest request that I would have in this budget.
Let's hear from the Premier, actually. The idea of reducing residential speed limits to 40 kilometers per hour on many residential streets in Winnipeg. Premier Rob Canoe was on InfoRad earlier this month, and we asked him about helping the city with that.
The thing with the city is they have the ability to make this change on their own. Mm-hmm. And if we as the province act, we would be changing it for every community in Manitoba. So not just the cities like Brandon and Dauphin, but small towns across the province as well too. So again, I respect the fact that there's a lot of different opinions on this.
So that's Marjorie Dalhouse, actually, who was filling in for me, talking to Premier Rob Canoe there. They say they're not going to pay for it. You're saying you're still going to go forward with it. How do those two things square?
If the city was to do it on its own, we'd have to put up thousands and thousands and thousands of signs, because the requirement then would be that we would have to sign every street that would be whatever it would be, 40 kilometers an hour, 30, whatever the decision would be. It would cost us over $10 million. That's a non-starter for me. I'm not in favor of doing that. There's a process to follow. And so the process is that the city would request the province of Manitoba to change the Highway Traffic Act. And then if they do change it, then the discussion can happen. So right now, it's actually premature to have the debate. For me, it's premature to have the debate over 30 or 40 or whatever kilometer default change the council may want to discuss. The process is to send this to the province of Manitoba, request that they change the Highway Traffic Act to allow the city of Winnipeg to make that decision. Once that decision comes back, if the change happens, then and only then, in my mind, the debate could happen. It'd be an important debate and discussion with the public as to whether or not we want to change the default speed limit.
So beyond the debate about changing it, though, if the Premier says we're not going to give you money to do this, I'm hearing from you that you can't do this. You don't have $8 million, $10 million around to make this happen on your own.
Yeah, well, we really don't, and it would be an imprudent expenditure of money, in my mind, to put and it would look ugly to put a sign, more signs up.
So
on every street.
as long as he's saying no, this isn't happening in Winnipeg.
That may be the case, but there's a formal process to follow, and so we're going to follow the formal process.
I want to ask you, while we're talking about money, about something that has come up. So provincial, property tax bills are going to be coming out for people in the city of Winnipeg. Of course, when we look at those bills, we have our property taxes. We also have education taxes that are on there, which make up, and the number that I have is 54% of the property tax bill. And so there is a move right now. Some councillors are saying that they don't feel like Winnipeggers should look at that bill and see education taxes, rather, I need to be correct here, education taxes on the bill anymore. Where do you stand on this? Do you want those things separated? What are your thoughts on this?
I would welcome if the province would send out their own education tax bill and the city of Winnipeg could send out our municipal tax bill. But right now, under provincial law, the city of Winnipeg or municipalities have to send out the bills to property owners, and that bill includes both an education tax and a municipal tax. What my council colleagues have raised, and I support them, and Councillor Brawadi and Councillor Duncan, is a reminder that the education taxes are going up much, much quicker and much higher than any municipal tax. In fact, the average this year will be of education, school tax, basically school board taxes, they will go up 9% this year on average across Winnipeg. Some higher, some lower. When property owners see their bill, the call is to make sure that you as a property owner understand there's a school board tax, which is now going to be on average 54% of your total property tax bill, and there's a municipal tax.
So is this really provincial political is this pure politics saying that the public will be mad at city councillors and say, like, why is this bill so huge and not understand the difference in that? Or what would be the purpose of
it's not pure politics because it's reality. I was a city councillor for 8 years. Every time the property tax bills go out, because the city's required to send them out, people call the city councillor, people call the mayor and say, why are my taxes going up so much? And we're reminding people 54%, more than half of the bill will be school board taxes. And that has increased rapidly. And so, I think that school trustees, if you have an issue with your school board tax, call your school trustee, not your city councillor or mayor.
To that end, then, in the budget on Tuesday, do you think that there should be more funding for education? If the taxes have been going up that much and such, I don't know, as mayor, if you want to weigh in on that or not.
No, I think that, I appreciate that the premier and his government have been trying to maintain a measure of affordability. They've had the school tax credit of $1,500. I think they bumped it up now to $1,600. So, on one hand, I'm watching the premier try to maintain affordability while school boards rapidly increase property taxes. So the message of the councillors, my message is, when you get your property tax bill as a property owner, be aware there's school board taxes, the education tax, that has gone up faster than any other tax, and that's over 54% of your bill now.
We'll leave it there this morning. Scott Gillingham, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
That is Winnipeg's mayor in for our monthly interview. Time right now is 3 minutes to 8 o'clock. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us on CBC this Thursday morning. We are really getting through March 19th already out there. We're going to be above zero for today in Winnipeg. It's -7 right now. Partly cloudy in the city. It's misty in Brandon, -3. Thompson's mostly cloudy, and it is -14, -14 up in Thompson. In the next hour of information radio after 8 o'clock, as you've been hearing on the news over the last 24 hours, this news breaking. 2 teens from Nova Scotia, one from Nova Scotia, one from Manitoba, so 2 teens are facing charges. Police say both were planning attacks on their local schools. One of the planned attacks was at Rivers Collegiate. Rivers is northwest of Brandon. We are going to hear from a parent there and from students about how people are framing this for themselves this morning in that very small community. So stay tuned. That is coming up after 8 o'clock here on CBC. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells, who's in our news center.
The family of a Manitoba woman who died while waiting for heart surgery has learned their mother's case was accidentally put in the wrong pile. In 2024, Debbie Fuster was told she needed heart surgery within 3 weeks. She died while waiting. The sentencing of a Winnipeg man who admitted to beating an elderly woman now rests with a judge. The 28-year-old man pleaded guilty to aggravated assault in January. We'll hear what was said in court in our next local news coming up at 8:30.
All right, thanks, Heather. In the traffic situation, we will remind you Waverley and Wilkes stall blocking the northbound middle lane. And Johnson Avenue West is closed between Brazier and Henderson. There's a fire in progress there. Crews on scene through the rush and maybe even into the afternoon.
On cue. When Paul McCartney announced the end of the Beatles, someone asked him what he planned to do next. His answer on a piece of paper was, "My plan, my only plan, is to grow up." Oscar-winning filmmaker Morgan Neville will tell you what that growing up looked like for Sir Paul.
Q with Tom Power this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
When he was growing up, James Martin worked many jobs as a dishwasher, a caddy, a bank teller. He's since become a Jesuit priest and an advocate for LGBTQ Catholics. James Martin on kindness and how politics intersects with religion, coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Eyewitness video from overnight captures the moment a Saudi oil refinery was hit during a massive Iranian aerial assault. Today, Kuwait is reporting 2 more refineries are on fire after being targeted by drones. Iran says it's retaliating for an Israeli strike on its own gas fields earlier this week. But Saudi Arabia says the attacks on its neighbors have, quote, shattered regional stability. Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhad Al Saud warned that Tehran is making a dangerous mistake.
And I think that's the clearest signal of how Iran feels about diplomacy. It doesn't believe in talking to its neighbors. It tries to pressure its neighbors. And what I can say categorically, that's not going to work. The kingdom is not going to succumb to pressure. On the contrary, this pressure will backfire.
The escalation has drawn a sharp response from the White House. In a social media post, President Donald Trump warned that he will, quote, massively blow up Iran's primary gas fields if the strikes on Qatar continue. The instability is already hitting the global economy, with oil prices surging past $110 a barrel in early trading. The former U.S. counterterrorism director who resigned this week is speaking out, claiming there was no intelligence suggesting Iran was developing nuclear weapons.
The Iranians have had a religious ruling, a fatwa, against actually developing a nuclear weapon since 2004. That's been in place since 2004. That's available in the public sphere. But then also we had no intelligence to indicate that that fatwa was being disobeyed or it was on the cusp of being lifted.
Joe Kent made the comments on Tucker Carlson's podcast, adding that he believes Israel forced the U.S. into the conflict by threatening to strike first. Kent, who's faced scrutiny for past ties to right-wing extremists, says Israeli officials personally lobbied President Trump with information that U.S. intelligence could not verify. His claim that, quote, an Israeli lobby drove the decision for war has drawn swift condemnation from Jewish groups who say the rhetoric amounts to anti-Semitism. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban is vowing to block a $90 billion euro loan to Ukraine at today's EU summit in Brussels. Orban is accusing Kyiv of deliberately cutting off oil supplies to Hungary after a Soviet-era pipeline was damaged in January.
To get the oil is existential for the Hungarians. Without getting that oil, all the households in Hungary and companies will go to bankruptcy. So, it's not a joke. It's not a political game. Zelensky should understand it, that this is not a game.
While EU leaders initially agreed to a massive funding package in December, Orban is now using his veto as leverage just weeks before a national election. Kyiv warns it will run out of money to fund its defense within a month if the stalemate isn't broken. To Pakistan now. At least 16 people are dead after a severe thunderstorm lashed Karachi overnight. Most of the victims were killed when a wall they were using for shelter collapsed during the height of the storm. Dozens of others were taken to hospital with storm-related injuries. Forecasters say the heavy rain and strong winds will continue to affect the region as the system moves west. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is making a high-profile appearance today on the Joe Rogan Experience, the podcast, a global powerhouse. Poilievre recorded the 3-hour interview during a multi-city tour of the United States, which wraps up today with a keynote speech in New York. Joining us now from our Parliamentary Bureau, Rafi Boudjikanian. Rafi, why is Pierre Poilievre choosing this specific platform right now?
Bottom line is eyeballs. Joe Rogan, huge platform, 20 million viewers on YouTube alone. This is a chance for Pierre Poilievre to attain visibility he may otherwise not have. So Americans maybe have some idea who he is, but I'm not sure anyone's paid much attention to the opposition leader in Canada other than that viral moment he had chewing out a reporter while munching on that apple a couple of years ago. And it is a bit of a tradition for Canadian leaders to reach out on these high visibility American platforms. If you think of Mark Carney, he kind of soft launched his bid for the Liberal leadership last year by appearing on The Daily Show. So if Poilievre's goal during this trip is to defend Canadian interests in the ongoing trade disputes with the U.S., there's hardly a bigger spotlight than an appearance on Joe Rogan's show.
Nonetheless, Rafi, there could be some risks that come with this.
Joe Rogan is an inherently controversial person. He's had to apologize for using the N-word on his podcast. He's floated anti-vaccine conspiracy theories during the COVID-19 pandemic. That caused some musicians like Canadian Neil Young to temporarily pull his music from Spotify, one of the carriers for Rogan's show. Yes, there are some risks. In fact, at some point, Joe Rogan last year during the election campaign said on his show that he'd invited Poilievre to appear, and the leader had turned him down, calling him too problematic.
Rafi Boudjikani in our Parliamentary Bureau. Thanks, Rafi.
You're welcome.
A new letter from Doug Ford reveals a sharp divide in how provinces view the future of the auto industry. The Ontario Premier is calling on BC and Quebec to drop their electric vehicle sales targets, arguing the mandates put Canadian jobs at risk. But as Colin Butler reports, while Ontario is focused on manufacturing, leaders in the West say the move to electric is a necessary response to the rising cost of fuel.
We need to stick together as a country, and we're united we stand, divided we fall.
A call for unity from Ontario Premier Doug Ford. He says he's asked Quebec and BC to ease their EV targets. He argues they could put Canada's auto sector at a disadvantage, since most vehicles are exported to the U.S., a market that might be loosening emissions rules.
It's like me telling Premier Eby, by the way, we aren't buying your beautiful lumber anymore. No, you just keep it over there. So it should be Team Canada, not Team XYZ province.
British Columbia Premier David Eby says they are on the same team, even if they're facing different pressures.
It's crucial for all premiers to work together to support each other on these challenges we share.
He says BC is adjusting its mandate to help, but EVs are still key to protect consumers from skyrocketing gas prices thanks to the war in Iran. All the while, he says, BC has had its trade pressures too on softwood lumber, steel, and seafood to China. He also suggested not all provinces are carrying the burden equally.
We've faced a disproportionate impact of the trade war compared with other provinces, and we don't receive equalization like Ontario does.
A call for unity from two different provinces, even as they pull in different directions. Colin Butler, CBC News, Toronto.
Alberta is preparing to pull back on who can access medically assisted dying. New provincial legislation would set a 1-year life expectancy limit, effectively barring those with chronic, non-terminal conditions or mental health struggles from the program. But the Premier argues the move protects the vulnerable. Families, though, who have used the service say it removes a fundamental choice. Erin Collins has more.
We believe MAID must be a compassionate option reserved only for those who will not recover from terminal illness.
Alberta's Premier laying out the reasoning behind Bill 18. Danielle Smith says the new law will limit access to medically assisted dying, restricting MAID to people with less than a year to live, eliminating advance requests from people suffering from diseases like Alzheimer's.
In other words, for individuals whose death is not reasonably foreseeable, there are often other care and treatment options available.
Smith says the new law would also prevent people suffering solely from mental health conditions from accessing MAID, something a special joint committee of Parliament is currently looking into. But the proposed law doesn't sit well with some Albertans.
For 12 years, he lived with really chronic, debilitating pain.
Tanya Stilson's father, John, chose a medically assisted death in 2023 at 83, a choice he wouldn't be able to make under Alberta's new law.
I'm devastated for people who are considering MAID and now have to make a decision based on what illness or disease that they have. Their choice is restricted.
In a statement, the federal government wrote that provinces have the right to develop their own frameworks around MAID. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Calgary.
And finally, Canada drops to 25th place in the latest World Happiness Report, marking its lowest ranking ever. The 2026 report warns of a dramatic decline in well-being among young Canadians, particularly teenage girls. Researchers point to heavy social media use and algorithmic feeds as a key factor in the slide. Finland remains the world's happiest country for the 9th year in a row. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team at Information Radio. You're on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. That spring-like sunshine continues to come on down. And we'll take it shining down on us here in Manitoba. -7 right now. We'll see if that's moved much with Abby in a moment. We will be above 0 today, and we'll get a mix of sun and cloud in our forecast. But the melt will continue for the next couple of days. Still pretty brisk and cold up north, though, in our province. Well, this hour on the show, we're going to dig into some more details after this story started developing yesterday. 2 teenagers, one from Manitoba and one from Nova Scotia, are facing charges this morning. Police say they both were planning simultaneous attacks on their local schools. One of the planned attacks was at Rivers Collegiate. This is a very small community. Locals say we don't even have a Tim's. It's northwest of Brandon. We're going to hear from some students there and a parent this morning about how people are processing this. So stay tuned. That is coming up. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells for our news headlines on other stories. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a Winnipeg nurse says Canada's immigration system is undercutting efforts to hire more healthcare workers. Matt Ushakov says his permanent residency application was rejected because it didn't describe what he does. That's even though his employer said he is a registered nurse. Ushakov says he wasn't given a chance to add more documents, and now he fears he may have to go back to his native Russia, where he could be conscripted. As we've been telling you in traffic, Johnson Avenue West is closed after an early morning fire. Crews were called to a vacant boarded-up house in the 200 block just after 4 this morning. Police in the area had to evacuate neighboring homes. The fire is now under control, but Johnson Avenue West between Brazier and Henderson is still closed as crews clean up. I'll be back with more Manitoba News coming up at 8:30.
All right. Thank you for the update, Heather.
Thanks.
Abby, how about we update the weather here?
Well, a mix of sun and clouds on the plate for the southern regions this morning, while we're still tracking snowy conditions moving through the north. Though no warnings in place, we'll see the southern areas warm up towards between 3 degrees and 8 degrees. Those biting wind chills still holding things down around the Churchill area. Forecast for Winnipeg and nearby areas in the Red River Valley region calls for a mix of sun and clouds. That should clear as you get into the morning, and mild morning temperatures stays around this -7, -8. We will see a high today be around 4 degrees. Despite the wind chill this morning, it's going to be a decent warm. Across the southern region, the Westman and the Pembina Valley regions are sitting near -3 at this time, warming up to 8 degrees, while up north we're seeing temperatures between -5 and -25 with periods of snow coming through some of the regions up north this morning. Wind chill around Churchill, -31.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Let's get into the morning commute. Couple things developing as we just heard in the news, Corey.
Yeah, the biggest issue, Johnson Avenue West, that fire. So they're between Brazier and Henderson, closed entirely at Johnson as crews deal with that fire. City says they expect it to be a problem throughout morning rush hour and even potentially into the afternoon. Heard from one person who called it a gong show as everyone was trying to figure out how to get, to Henderson or wherever they need to get through all the side streets. So you just want to avoid that area if you can. Also, got a call from Margaret about northbound Waverly, right around Wilkes, Sterling Lyon area there. There's a stall blocking that northbound middle lane. She said it's missing at least one tire of that car, so it might be a little while till it's cleaned up. But traffic actually isn't too bad, so just got to avoid that middle lane there if you're heading northbound Waverly, approaching Wilkes. If you do see anything else going on, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788 648-3093.
Well, let's get into the details of this story. 2 teenagers, one from Rivers, Manitoba, and one from Nova Scotia, were arrested for, as I mentioned, allegedly planning simultaneous attacks at their local schools. Authorities say they were alerted by Interpol and the FBI last Friday. Police say the 2 teens were talking to each other online, planning, quote, violent attacks at Rivers Collegiate northwest of Brandon and at Parkview Education Centre in Bridgewater, Nova Scotia. Rivers Collegiate is home to about 140 students from grades 7 to 12. CBC's Karen Pauls spoke to the students, or some of them, outside the school yesterday.
Duncan McLean. It's just kind of like a surprise. You know, it's usually everyone, everyone here, and it's a pretty close community, I'd say. So I feel like it's kind of hard for people to think like that.
Jesse Borden. Just that there's threats. That's all I know. Kind of surprised, Didn't expect that to happen in this town. It's kind of crazy. Never expect that to happen here.
Cole Leland. Like Jesse, I was surprised. Didn't really expect it. It's a small town. You don't really think of things like this happening.
Does it worry you?
It's definitely worries me now that I know things like that could happen in such a small community. Like, luckily I didn't get anywhere like closer to the school or inside with their weapons or whatever, so.
Do you know the person arrested?
Not well.
No.
Like, see him in the hallway, say hi.
Do you know the young man?
Not really.
Think he's okay?
I don't know. It's kind of a tough one to say if he's okay or not after you do something like that.
That is Karen Pauls, who was speaking to students outside the school yesterday in Rivers. Now, Renee Favron's son, Colton, doesn't go to Rivers Collegiate, but he does go to Rivers Elementary. Rivers Elementary and the Collegiate share the bus together with high schoolers. Police say the Manitoba team was arrested on a school bus Monday, though as you'll hear, Renee's son wasn't on that bus. I spoke with her about all of this at 8 o'clock.
Good morning.
So how are you feeling as a parent this morning?
A lot of emotions. I mean, there's, the what ifs and what could have been. There's a lot of relief that things were taken care of as swiftly as they were, and we'll forever be grateful for that because nobody wants to imagine how bad that could have been had that not been the case.
Bring me into your community a little bit. I mean, if people have never been to Rivers, how big is it? Is it a place where you know your neighbors?
You'd know your neighbors. It's a very, very small community. I know the high school has about 141 students, and the elementary school is around 200. We don't have a Tim Hortons or anything like that, so it's a very small local place where you walk around and say hi, and everybody is pretty close together.
Yeah. So what was the mood there that you were feeling when you were out and about in the community in the last, yesterday and such?
A lot of processing still. The information is all very new, and, there's that shock of it all. And did you hear about what happened? Everybody's super grateful, like I said before, that things weren't any worse than they were. So I think that's the prevailing emotion right now.
Yeah. How did you find out what happened?
We were notified by the school board on Tuesday that there had been an instance on the bus, but no specifics. I found out yesterday on Facebook, seeing a post from the police station in Nova Scotia, so it was kind of shocking to find out that way. I think that was the biggest shock. And then as the day went on, more information was released locally. But yeah, for the most part, we found out online like everybody else.
What was the message that came from the school on Tuesday, out of curiosity, yesterday?
It wasn't too in-depth. They notified us that there had been arrests made on a school bus, and that they had gone to speak to people at the high school after. There was no details about what exactly was involved with all that. It was mostly just a heads up that the situation had happened, I think, in the event that students came in talking about it.
Just to be clear here, I mentioned that that your son would share the bus with high schoolers.
Yes.
Was he on this bus, or can you disclose that or not?
He was not on this bus.
Okay.
I did check with him to kind of feel it out. I didn't want to create fear where there didn't need to be any, but you just ask the question of like, hey, just wondering on Monday morning, did the bus get stopped on the way into school? And he's like, no, why? And I'm like, oh, just curious.
Yeah, navigating that carefully. Police in Bridgewater and in Manitoba, here in our province, said they were alerted by the FBI, as I mentioned, about the planned attacks. What are your thoughts on that?
Grateful that people are, like, I know we kind of hate feeling watched, but in a situation like this, there's a gratitude that they took it seriously and reached out to locals to be able to mitigate that situation, so we didn't have a bigger situation than it could have been.
Yeah.
So, being able to work together regardless of everything that's going on and eventually prevent a really bad issue from happening is, regardless of how the information came about, it's good that the information was provided.
How was what happened quite recently in Tumbler Ridge? Did it come to mind in BC?
Yeah, it definitely did. It's hard not to, especially because it was so recently, and it's frightening that it's happening more frequently in Canada, and we don't want that to be the case. So it's hard not to think about those situations because they're not the norm.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a thought that crossed the mind.
We started by talking about how, you're in a small community there. What are your thoughts on, without obviously disclosing anything that we can't journalistically hear on the air, but we know that this was a teen boy. Obviously, he was on the school bus. What are your thoughts on his connections in community and his family?
Yeah, it makes you wonder what's led somebody to get to that point, especially having a child right now who's 8 and getting older, wondering what as a parent you can do to watch your own child and make sure that's not something that they ever consider in conversations that you can have. And I can imagine the family themselves are absolutely distraught that they're tied to this in any way, and probably doing a lot of considerations of what did we miss, what could we have done differently. And I think it's important to have compassion for them as well, because nobody wants to be that family. So I can imagine that they're having a very difficult time with that.
We have few details about why these attacks were allegedly planned with this teen here and the teen on the East Coast. What do you think is needed to help prevent these types of cases moving forward potentially here?
That's a tricky question. Without knowing people too directly, mental health is often a huge factor in a lot of these situations. Bullying can also be a big factor in those as well. So I think it's important to take care of our people, show kindness, teach kindness, and just watch people and if you see changes in behavior, ask about it and have those conversations and do what needs to be done.
Thank you very much, Renee, for weighing in this morning from Rivers. Really appreciate you being on CBC with us.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Renee Favre and I spoke with at 8 o'clock. She's a parent in Rivers, Manitoba. Heather Lamb is the mayor of the Riverdale municipality, so that's obviously in that area, covers that area rather. In a statement to CBC, she said this, quote, "We understand that many residents in Riverdale municipality are feeling shocked and deeply concerned after learning of the press release issued by the Bridgewater Police Service and the Blue Hills RCMP regarding arrests involving a youth in Nova Scotia and a youth here in Manitoba. Like all of you, we became aware of the situation through publicity available information released by law enforcement, and at this time we do not have additional details beyond what has been shared by the RCMP and Bridgewater Police," end quote. She did go on to say in the statement, quote, "News like this affects us not just as officials, but as neighbors, parents, guardians, teachers, and community members. It's natural for people to feel unsettled or worried. Whenever a situation involves young people, schools, and safety, it touches the very heart of who we are as a municipality," end quote. You can read the latest on the story, and any additional details we're able to confirm and report through as the investigation will be ongoing on our website. That story is up at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
The PWHL is back for the third season of heart-stopping women's hockey. And this season, there are two new teams looking to make their mark on the ice. The Seattle Torrent and Vancouver Golden Eyes. When the world's best women's hockey players face off, anything can happen. Will the Minnesota Frost achieve a three-peat? Will a new team take home the trophy? There's only one way to find out. Watch the PWHL for free on CBC Gem.
-7, 8:25 a.m. Corey, what are you doing here?
I got a call from Fuller on the commuter line. He says Lajmodier and Reinders, the lights are flashing red in all directions. Might be a little bit slow going on Laj this morning. Also, just a reminder, Johnson between Brazier and Henderson closed due to a fire both ways. Expected to potentially be closed into the afternoon. So you just want to avoid that area altogether. Pretty gong showy, as one caller said. If you can give me a call if you see anything else, though. 204-788-3093.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for the calls as well to the commuter line to update Corey on what's happening out there. Well, we thought we would push to the news with a bit of a tune. I think that one of the things that's so nice about this time of year is the sunshine. So here's Winnipeg's own alt-pop dream weaver, Shay Wolf, and Sunny Days.
Sunny days, sunny days, come find me, sunny days. Sweet honey child, the rain has come and it's poured. Sweet honey child, feels like months of gloom and gray. Sunny days, come find me, sunny days. Sunny days, come find me, oh sunny days. Sweet honey child, the clouds are slowly parting way. Sweet honey child, feels like blue skies start today. Sunny days, come find me, sunny days. Sunny days, come find me, sunny days. Sunny days shine on me. Sunny days shine on me. Sunny days shine on me. Sunny days shine on me.
What a happy song from Shay Wolf, a radiant anthem. We want to use this mood to thank the people that make our show shine. Thank you to the associate producers, May McKillop and Sophia Peralta-Barone, as well as Sierra Sanders this morning. Thank you to our reporter in unit, Jim Agapito, to our news center, Aaron Broen, Megan Ketchison, and Heather Wells, our Studio 15 crew, Abby Adiemi, Corey Funk, and Darren Marash, as well as our producers, Leif Larson and Nellie Gonzalez.
Sunny days, sunny days, sunny days, come find me, oh sunny days.
Fun, right? right? Loved that this morning. Maybe that'll bring up more of the sun than cloud, even though we're expecting a mix, as we've been telling you. We actually are looking at some pretty decent weather. A high of 4 in Winnipeg, a high of 6 coming for tomorrow. And then we'll see what happens through the weekend as some periods of rain are expected in the longer range forecast. Just a quick reminder that we are live in Brandon at Chez Angela on April 1st, April 2nd. Our locations to be announced. We're trying to nail that down today. And so we hope we see you out there for a couple of special shows in Brandon as we put that city in focus as part of our Communities in Focus project here at CBC Manitoba. We like to get around the province and like to hear your stories from your perspectives. If you are from Brandon and you're a regular listener to the show, we would love it if you connect with us and let us know what's happening in your city. What do you care about? Why do you choose to live there? So all of those pitches can come to us at 788-3205 if you want to weigh in. And hopefully we'll see you in Brandon on April 1st and 2nd. Also, tomorrow is the International Day of the Francophonie. And if you want to call and let us know why French matters in your life, we'd love to get some calls so we can air them tomorrow. And that number to call is 788-3205, very same one on our listener line. Your news from Manitoba is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it is still -7. It is the last official day of winter and will be melting today. A mix of sun and clouds, bit of a wind, and a high of 7 degrees. The family of a Manitoba woman who died while waiting for heart surgery has learned their mother's case was accidentally put in the wrong pile. In 2024, Debbie Fuster was told she needed heart surgery within 3 weeks, but she died while on the waiting list. After her death, Fuster's children proposed Debbie's Law. Her daughter, Colleen Dick, says it would let patients know how long they'd have to wait for surgery and discuss options with them for care outside the province.
When we started with the push for Debbie's Law, it was under the impression that she was on a waiting list and they never got to her. We got called in for a meeting at St. Boniface, and it was rather heartbreaking because it was even worse. A booking form had not been filled out properly by the doctor.
Dick says this type of human error highlights the need for the province to be more transparent with patients and revamp how the healthcare system communicates. Well, people in the small western Manitoba town of Rivers are still coming to grips with news of a plot to attack their local high school. A 14-year-old boy is in custody facing a charge of uttering threats. The suspect was arrested on the school bus Monday morning. Renee Favron moved to Rivers with her family last year. She has a son in elementary school and is shocked by the news.
Especially having a child who takes a school bus as well. I'm very grateful that the situation was resolved, obviously, before anything had happened. So I'm super grateful for all of that. But I mean, there's always that part of you that, it hits close to home.
Favron says many people are still processing the news. A 15-year-old girl in Nova Scotia was also arrested, and police say the two teens were planning a coordinated attack at schools in Rivers and in Bridgewater, Nova Scotia. A Winnipeg nurse says his permanent residency application was rejected based on a technicality. Mad Ushakov says he was denied because he didn't provide details on his job duties, even though his employer said he is a registered nurse. Toronto-based lawyer Maureen Silkoff says applications can easily be refused because of superficial reasons.
It could be very unfair because we know that in situations such as healthcare applications, Canada has a real labor shortage. Canada has prioritized these category-based applications under express entry. So it's actually absurd.
The federal government says a request to reconsider Ushakov's application is pending review. Ushakov says his work permit runs for another 6 months, but everything after that is up in the air. Johnson Avenue West is closed because of an early morning fire. Crews were called to the vacant, boarded-up house in the 200 block just after 4 this morning. Police in the area evacuated neighboring homes. Heavy smoke and flames were coming from the house. It was declared under control around 6:20 this morning. Johnson Avenue West, though, between Brazier and Henderson, is still closed as crews clean up. Roads and sidewalks are iced over, and people are advised to use caution once the area reopens. The cause of that fire is under investigation. The city says the house had been damaged in a previous fire in October of 2022. The sentencing of a Winnipeg man who admitted to beating an elderly woman now rests with a judge. The 28-year-old man pleaded guilty to aggravated assault in January. CBC's Austin Shebekaget has details from court.
Victoria Como was beaten so badly that she can't walk on her own anymore. The senior is also terrified to go outside by herself, ever since she was randomly attacked while walking to buy milk in February 2025. Justin Getty admitted to the beating in court last January. Court heard the 28-year-old has long-standing histories of both addictions and mental health issues. A pre-sentence report said Getty is at a high risk to reoffend because of his drug use, pro-criminal attitude, and antisocial behavior. Prosecutors said he should be given a 5-year sentence, but the defense called that crushing and asked for 2 years instead, on top of time served. At the end of the hearing, Getty said he was very, very, very sorry for the attack. The judge reserved their decision until a later date. Austin Shebekaget, CBC News, Winnipeg.
And enrollment in girls minor hockey in this province is seeing double-digit growth. Hockey Manitoba says it has registered more than 600 new players in the past 2 years. That's nearly a 13% increase. CEO Trevor Bunai says the largest uptake has been in the youngest level of players, and that, he says, is critical for laying a foundation both on and off the ice.
To develop skills for life, discipline, regular practice, working with teammates, learn great skills for their personal and professional lives as they grow into them.
Bunai says the Professional Women's Hockey League has helped increase visibility for the sport among young women. And Marcy, I'm so excited about winter ending and spring arriving tomorrow that I actually gave you the wrong high today. Oh. I'm making it 7, but in fact the high today is 4, so not quite as warm as perhaps the spring day we're all hoping for.
Can we negotiate?
Yeah.
I say just go 20, just me as well.
Let's just say it's 20. I like that. I like what Corey's at. All right. We'll wait for it. But yes, spring arrives tomorrow. We're going to get into our forecast in a moment. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
First, we are going to go to Corey for the commute, though.
Johnson between Brazier and Henderson been closed all morning due to a fire. Might be closed into the afternoon, so just avoid that area if you can. Other than that, though, traffic is running fairly smoothly.
Okay, Abby.
If you're looking for that high, you'd have to go towards the Modern Winkler area. But for Winnipeg, we warm up to 4 degrees today. Most of the regions in the south tracking close to 8 degrees, while up north, we're going to see temperatures struggle to warm up to between -5 and -14. Fresh snow on the way to the northern part of the province.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Well, for that first day of spring show, you'll join Corey here tomorrow for Funky Fridays, and I will talk to you again on air here on Monday morning. But please join the team on Information Radio on CBC and stay here. The Currents coming up next.